new episode of the Game Informer Show. I'm your host, Ben Hanson, joined by Andrew Reiner. How you doing, sir? Really good. Welcome. We have Kyle Hilliard. Hi. Ben Reeves.
I'm happy to be here.
We have a real old school crew here for a new age show. You know what we're talking about today, Ben Reeves?
Are we talking about the first time?
We're talking about the first time.
Yeah.
You got it, dude. We're talking about, of course, by first time he means Deep Rock Galactic. It's a game that's on Xbox One. Steam, we'll talk a little bit about that weird old mining game. Kyle, I can tell from the paper cuts on your fingers you've been playing a lot of Nintendo Labo. So we'll talk about that whole weird thing. A couple of smaller games here and there. Reeves, you're here to talk about the grand return of Fear Effect, everybody's favorite franchise. A new Fear Effect game came out this week.
That's right.
What a world.
Yeah.
It is.
I can't wait to talk about it for the last time.
There we go. So we'll talk about that later. Then we'll get Jake Waltney in here to talk about Pit People and some other fun things. Then some great emails. Back half of the show, we have Robin Hunicke joining us. She's going to be hosting the GDC Awards this year. Robin Hunicke, she worked on Sims, worked on Journey at that game company. She worked on Boomblocks. She was a producer on Boomblocks, working close with Spielberg. Spielberg's genius game. Oh, did you remember to ask her about that? Oh, don't worry, I asked her about Spielberg to an obsessive degree. So there's some fun old Spielberg stories in there. Maybe like the deepest I've ever heard anybody go on some very like weird, intimate details that she put in Boomblocks due to Spielberg. Hey, wait. Yeah. Can I ask one question, please? Did Spielberg ever even see the game? Yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay. So stay tuned for that. So she was at EA for all those years, and she said that there was a complaint box at a certain point for EA employees to submit their complaints about the company. The number one complaint about EA, I promise no one can ever guess, but she reveals it in that interview. It's quite fun. Also, just on the Spielberg note, she talks about what she's working on now, which is with Phenomena, working on with Tom, with Keita Takahashi, the creator of Katamari Damacy. Oh, cool. And she talks about like the overlap between the vibes and the creative output of Takahashi and Spielberg, which is a very fascinating discussion. It's a lighthearted interview. She's a lot of fun. You can tell she's been in the industry for a long time because she's big on using first names for everybody. When she's talking about Will Wright, she's like, well, back when Will and I were working on this, like, okay, Will Wright, you're talking about it. She just throws up Harvey. It's okay, that's Harvey Smith from Arcane. So there's a lot of like little details like that I hope everyone's up to speed on. Old Harv. But she is the second installment of kind of this series ramping up to GDC. So if you notice a lot of the interviews coming up on the show or in the past of the show, they touch on GDC for a little bit. It's this really cool opportunity where GDC is the Game Developers Awards, Game Developers Conference, I should say. And somebody reached out to us from GDC and said, hey, here's a list of every presenter at GDC. Do you want to interview anybody on the show? And that's just a godsend. And so it's just sorting through hundreds of people to be like, who haven't we talked to on the show? That'd be interesting. So there's some fun stuff coming up, and I hope you enjoy it. Hey, for now, Andrew Reiner, Deep Rock Galactic. Okay, co-op mining. Here's my pitch. If I'm in the boardroom, right, it's a whiteboard, and I go up there and I write Destiny plus Red Faction. Wrong. Okay, how would you describe it? It is more... Red Faction is accurate. Like, so that element is you're tunneling through caverns, right? Yeah. Like, you can chisel your way through anything with a pickaxe, which is very cool. So you're plotting your own course in these caves to a degree. But beyond, like, the Minecraft angle, like, it has a cool look to it, and you can even blow stuff up. Yes. Which I guess you can in Minecraft as well, but it feels much more Red Faction-y than Minecraft. Yes, it does. It reminds me of that. There's no physics. I guess that's the one thing that's missing. Stuff isn't toppling over. Right. But you are making big holes with explosives, which is fun. More Red Faction 1. Yeah, right, yeah. The proof of concept version. But it is a 4-player cooperative game where you are going into the mines on an alien planet. You are a group of dwarves, of course. They love mining, apparently. Why is that? I don't know. Reeves, do you understand the history of Snow White? Were they miners?
Yeah,
absolutely. They were whistled while they worked.
That's because they're shorter to the ground, so they're obsessed.
Oh, that Tolkien was a genius. Yeah. He did not write Snow White. All right. That's debatable.
Little known fact.
Don't get Reeves started on conspiracy theory.
4-player cooperative game like Red Faction. You are in these mines to get rare materials, minerals, gold, different alien type of elements that you can use to level up your gear, buy new stuff. One of the things you can buy is beards. So if you want a cool beard for your dwarf, you can do that.
How many variations on beards are there? There's only one right now. We have 3 on the podcast right now. Yeah, technically 4, so I'll say a hell of a lot.
But there's only one you can buy right now. But here's the thing: the game is still in early access on PC or game preview on Xbox One.
Mhm.
So I hope they add like dozens of beards.
Oh,
It seems like it's really missing that element.
I can't wait to buy the Kyle Hilliard beard.
The scraggler, they call it.
The scraggler.
But these mines you go into, or these caves you go into, are mostly pitch black. Sometimes there will be like a geyser of lava that will shoot up and illuminate a corner for you or something. But you're throwing flares, and it really kind of has that element of you feel like it's a little suffocating when you're in there. It's a little mysterious as you're kind of wandering through this area. You start to lose track of where you've been.
Oh yeah.
Because there's a lot of verticality. You know, every once in a while you go over a cliff, and then there'll be a little alcove underneath it, which leads to another little tunnel.
Thank God you have a grappling hook, which is
Yep.
very sweet.
That helps you get around. Also, you'll see like a stash of gold up on the ceiling, and you'll be like, okay, I'm going to grapple up to that and chisel away at it. You are set to collect a certain amount of things for your mining company, so they'll want you to go in and get 200 of one type of element, right?
It's like mission based.
Yeah, or like go find these 10 mysterious eggs, and the eggs are all like in walls. None of them are ever just lying around on the cavern floor. So you have to look for these little pulsating red dots on the wall, and then chisel into that and find the egg in there in that kind of area, right? It's very cool. Like I've gotten into the wall looking for something and felt like I've kind of lost, like I've been going up and down and all around, and it's like I'm now stuck in the wall. Which way's out? Can someone help me get out of here? But you were.
Do you die? Is there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So
Other
here's the thing. So as you're in these caverns, there are these spider-like creatures, plant-like creatures, these alien life forms that are all hostile, and they are coming after you. And every once in a while, your director of the mining company will be like, "We've detected a swarm. It's heading your way." When that happens, you get the team together, all four of you together, and it's kind of like a horde mode where you're just kind of holding your ground, hoping you survive this, no one dies. You can revive them if that happens, but it becomes frantic. The gunplay is excellent. There's 4 different classes of dwarves. One starts with a minigun. Another guy has like these drill arms, like 2 drill arms, so he can like drill through caverns faster.
Like a Big Daddy kind of look.
Yeah,
but more like a very short daddy.
Yeah,
And then he also got a
Scout
flamethrower, which is very sweet.
Oh, that sounds. How does it help you dig though?
Well, it doesn't help you dig,
It doesn't hurt.
but it will
You can melt
make
the
those
rock.
bugs
Oh.
pop like you wouldn't believe.
So the spiders want your rocks? That's what's happening?
Yeah, what's confusing about this?
Oh, even I got that. I've never seen it.
Yeah, I think they want to eat you is the
Oh.
thing. But really fun cooperative experience where you're constantly talking to your teammates about where you're going, what you're doing. When the swarm comes, it's like, okay, do we have enough of this material to call in a supply drop, which will give you, that's the only way you can get more ammo. So there could be times
through the cave.
Yeah, it drills through
Oh,
the
okay.
surface down
That's
to
cool.
you. It is really cool. And then once you get your materials, you have to escape. And then that's where, like, again, it kind of has that swarm mentality where bugs are crawling out of everywhere. You got to get back to the surface.
And try to remember how the hell you dug a
Exactly.
hole to exactly where you are. And you've got like a couple of robot buddies. One of them sounds exactly like BB-8.
I'm surprised they haven't been sued yet. Yeah,
It's absurd.
it is BB-8.
Yeah, it is 100% BB-8.
But I'm super addicted to this game right now. I think it's really fun. We have a great team here at Game Informer playing it, and I can't wait to see. I'm in that kind of moment where it's like, do I want to stick with it because it's in game preview?
Yeah.
When I know it's going to be more robust and polished. It already shows a lot of polish right now, but it'll be even better by the time it actually comes out. Or do I just, because I like playing it, keep going with it?
Yeah, it definitely seems like a great foundation to work off. It's very easy, just a lot of new missions, a lot of new equipment, like you're saying, stuff like that. Like on Steam, I've had a tough time getting into public matches. There's a lot of people playing private matches, but for public games, I've been having a challenge so far. But if you have a group of friends, it seems okay. But it's definitely one to keep your eye on for when it goes 1.0. It seems like it could be a really good time.
Like, once you get into gameplay, it feels like it's done. It really does feel like it's polished. I don't know what else they're going to add to that experience. But I think it's $24.99 if memory serves me correctly, and it's totally worth it. Like, yeah, we've been having a blast with it. Matches last anywhere between like 30 minutes up to like even like an hour, 15 minutes we have on one where we're just continually spelunking, going deeper and deeper and deeper.
No way out.
It's very cool.
Deep Rock Galactic, everybody.
Sounds cool.
There we go. Oh gosh, we forgot to mention that we just posted a special edition of the podcast from Fulton Brewery, where we celebrated Game Informer's 300th issue. We should talk a little bit about that event. Thank you to everybody that came out. Thank you to everybody that watched the stream. We even appreciated that, or listened to the podcast. But so many wonderful podcast fans and Game Informer fans in general. And my favorite thing about it is when you're in that type of environment, especially at like Fulton Brewery, where we're at in downtown Minneapolis, it was kind of a mixed crowd where it's like some people just came here to drink on a Saturday. I don't know who the Game Informer fans are. And you never know. It's Minneapolis. It's cold out. And so you never knew like who was a Game Informer fan, who wasn't. So thank you especially to everybody that came up with like very specific feedback. It was great to see people to come up and be like, hey, Ben Hansen, I really enjoyed your Toby Fox interview from 2 years ago. Like, great. Thank you so much.
So I had a series of 2 people I talked to. One guy came up to me, shook my hand, and he's like, just wanted to say thank you. I've been reading your work since 1997.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God. Like, that's crazy.
Why did you keep reading?
Yeah. Have you read my stuff? The next person, 1996.
Wow.
Knew the very first issue I worked on, like, had all that data. I was just like, this is crazy.
And then you put your hand to the 1997 guy's face and pushed him out to this
Exactly.
guy. I'm not wiping my butt with you.
You're not important anymore.
I've been reading since 1995, by the way. Give you a heads up.
Bump that praise up.
That's right.
Yeah, thank you again to everybody. It was a lot of fun. It was like the perfect size community for interaction, but yeah, we filled up that place. It was pretty wild.
Yeah. I talked to some guys.
Yeah.
They had just come from like a wine and cheese show at Target Field or a wine and food show and like drank a bunch of alcohol, and then they're like, oh, we're going to follow that up by coming over here to the Game Informer party.
Wait, were they Game Informer fans?
They were Game Informer fans. They came intentionally about like, man, you just spent like a whole like 4 hours like drinking beer at this festival, and now you're calling it up by Game Informer. All right, good on you.
I thought you were going to say we needed cheese.
That was one thing that was lacking.
We got a lot of complaints
for the
about
next
that.
300th issue. I think so.
Kyle, it's funny. I remember the podcast before. I think it must have been last week's where I was talking about like, oh, wouldn't it be fun to like rotate through Game Informer editors just like rapid fire on the podcast? That's ultimately what the stream was. Except instead of just editors, we also have the old timers. Ryan Bohr and Tim Turry and Adam Beeson around there. Yeah. It's
Miller,
so fun.
Miller Sorcher. Helgeson, the other man, stopped by.
Oh, it killed me that Helgeson wasn't on that. He was at the event.
Yeah, he was later.
Great to see him. But yeah, definitely want to get him back on the podcast at some point. But speaking of Matt Helgeson, Nintendo Labo. Kyle, you went out to...
you are just the king of transition.
I do what I can. So you went out to San Francisco to play Nintendo Labo?
Yeah. What is that? This is for the video watchers. This is my certificate of completion that I did their Labo training or something.
Did they have like?
I just wanted to display it so you guys know that I'm an expert.
Oh,
I think is what I'm going for.
Good. Okay, so you went out to San Francisco.
Yeah.
And did they call it the lab? Any like cute presentation? It was just a cluster.
It was at an art gallery, and they didn't have like a cute name for it or anything. But they kind of had a setup, and they walked us through like all 3 of the elements of Labo, like the creating, the customizing, and then the actual like playing with them. I did try to do a little bit of destroying, but they didn't. For some reason, they didn't set that aside as a separate part of the event. I don't know why.
Most importantly, though, you weren't going there and assembling by yourself.
No.
This is interesting. You finally had an excuse to rope in your daughter.
That's right. Yeah, my daughter came with me, and she helped me play with Labo, I guess you could say. And when Nintendo offered, they're like, "Do you want to bring your kid?" I thought they were like half kidding. Like I was like, I guess.
They were full kidding.
Yeah. So she was probably the youngest there, and then there were like maybe like 6 or 7 other kids there.
This is the one example. One time where I want you to talk about your daughter. So how old is she?
She is 6.
Okay. And what did she think of playing with Labo? Was it too complicated for her?
No. So the first thing we did is we built the RC car, which is like. Let me see if I can describe these. You've seen him in the commercials and stuff. It almost looks like a bug with like a bunch of legs, and you put the 2 Joy-Cons on each side of it. So we built that first, and that was like the simplest one. Okay. And all she wanted to do was color it. Like that's all she wanted to do. Like she put it together, and I helped her a little bit, but mostly she did it on her own because it was simple enough. The instructions are cool. I like them because it's basically you're watching like a video of how to put it together.
Yeah.
But if there's like a next and a back button, but if you kind of slide the next button over, like stretch the button out on the touchscreen and actually fast forwards, which is nice because it has like literally every step where it's like fold each crease, like pop it out of the thing, fold each crease. And the first time you do it, you do kind of go step by step, but I pretty quickly figured out it's like, oh, I just have to fold everything. I have to pre-fold everything. So it was nice that you could fast forward pretty easily.
Did it give you like a Lego level of satisfaction to put that stuff together?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's comparable. Like especially when I got into like the RC car was really simple. and it was like just a couple of folds, then a couple of slots in, and that one took like, I don't know, like 10, 15 minutes or something like that. And then they had all kinds of pens and pencils and like googly eyes and feathers and stuff. So all the kids were super into like really creating it. Like I wasn't.
That stuff doesn't come with the kits, though. Right?
No, but they are going to sell like. I was asking about this.
No.
They're going to sell like creative kits, and I asked, are there going to be like Nintendo branded markers in there? And they said no, that it wouldn't have markers, but it will have like tape and stickers and stuff like that. And I don't even know if it's going to have like Nintendo stickers in it.
Well, in the images they released, they definitely had examples where it's like Wario's eyes, Mario's eyes, Inkling eyes.
Okay.
So it's like very
So that
lightly
stuff will be
Nintendo
in there.
themed.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Would you have felt really uncomfortable if you wouldn't have brought your daughter and you're just like sitting cross-legged on a floor, like putting sparkles and stickers on a bunch of cardboard?
I probably would have. Like, it was nice that she just went full on coloring mode. Like, I didn't. I really. I was very clever, and I wrote the word "customized" on my RC car, and everyone thought that was hilarious.
Oh, what a hoot! Okay, RC car specifically.
Yes,
I've watched all those Labo videos. I think they're endlessly fascinating. They released like a batch of 3 a couple weeks ago. You should really watch the variety video because it is the most badass thing I've ever seen in my life, just how many things this thing is capable of.
Yeah.
But the RC car in particular, how is it moving? It vibrates with the Joy-Con, but how does that forward?
I don't know how physics work necessarily, but I mean, I think it's as simple as like the left side vibrates and that moves the left side, and the right side vibrates and that moves the right side, and if you press both buttons, it moves forward together.
It moves the wheels?
No, it just vibrates the legs.
Why isn't it vibrating backwards?
I don't know how physics work. I don't know.
Wait, does it have wheels on it?
No, it's just.
Why are you calling it a car?
That's what they call it. It's an RC car, is what they're calling it.
Okay.
It's the RC car Labo.
I can go backwards if you put it on a downward slope.
Is that right?
Yeah.
You can also fly.
That's how physics works.
So that's like neat. Like that's just a nice little showcase of how it works. But then like there was like a button on the screen where it kind of like it opened a panel and there were all kinds of more options, and the IR camera actually becomes a display, and like it feeds the display to the screen. So it's like night vision basically.
That's sweet.
So you can it was weird that they suggested this to all the kids, but they were like, yeah, you guys could use it like a night vision camera to spy on your parents at night.
Watch them sleep. It'll be funny.
It's the kind of toys Tony Stark made when he was like 6.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I'm very excited about that camera. So at any point you can bring up the IR camera on the thing.
And then what will come in the pack too is like these little, just like one folded stand that you can put up that has a little like piece of reflective tape on it, and you can tell that RC car to just chase that dot. And like what you can do is
put
like
it on the cat.
Honestly, yeah. So like what they were doing, like let's say the RC car was on one side of a table and we had the reflective tape on the other side. What they were doing is like they would cover it with their hand and the thing would stop, and they would move their hand and the thing would move forward.
How fast does it go?
100 miles an hour?
That's crazy. It was like light speed. It's not very fast, but like that was cool. Like that, there's all these like weird little things that it can do that I wasn't aware of.
Well, for example, like in that video I was talking about, they were talking about the piano, which seems like one of the more complicated builds you could do,
which we didn't get to make, which I was disappointed by. Yeah,
it probably would have taken 3 hours to put together.
Quickly. But the other thing that we got to make was the fishing rod.
Oh yeah,
and they gave us the kits, which was like 6 sheets of cardboard. And they even told us up front, they're like, you're not going to be able to finish this.
Really?
And it gives you a time estimation on the tutorial, and it said like an hour and a half for that one.
How?
Yeah. But they said you could do it faster. Like that's just if you watch the whole tutorial at normal speed and kind of be very methodical about it.
Right. But the speedrunning community is going to go nuts on it.
That's right. Yeah. But you were asking about the piano.
The piano, well, just in a variety kit, you're talking about the weird little things that it can do. They were explaining so many things. They're like, oh, you can install a grandpa filter, so everything sounds like an old grandpa when you press any keys. Also, you can cut out any piece of cardboard in any waveform shape you want, and the piano will play that as a piece of audio.
What? It's great. So, yeah.
No.
The piano's cool. It's nuts, like how it works. So the way it works is there's the keys, and the IR camera is looking at it from the back. So it almost acts as like a little tripod. And then there's like a little cardboard piece that it's like a knob that you can just take out and put other knobs into it. And like they had ones that were like a traditional piano sound, like cat noises and stuff like that. And yeah, and then there's the slot in the top where you can cut shapes and put it in there, and the IR camera on the controller will scan it. And the way we used it there was it scanned it, and it used the form that you cut out to create a fish. and then you can put the fish in the fishing game and try to catch it, which is weird. And then the other one, the one that kind of blew my mind, which was like just a great example of like, oh, I had no idea that the Switch could even do this, is they had set up just a regular cardboard box and cut a hole in it, and then they put the blue or left Joy-Con on top of the box, and they had an acoustic mode for the piano. And what you would do is you would play keys on the piano, and it would vibrate the controller at different pitches. And they had the box set up there that was just laying on top of the box to sort of amplify the sound of the controller vibrating at different pitches.
So you can turn a cardboard box into a speaker thanks to a Joy-Con.
Yes.
What the
It's super weird.
This is witchcraft.
It is.
Is cardboard one of the greatest technological advancements of humankind?
Well, forget the information age. We're now officially in the cardboard age of human existence.
I mean, that was the thing that just kind of blew me away about it, was just how toy-like it is. Like, I don't know how much of a game it's going to be. Like, I played the fishing game and it worked well, but I don't
like mediocre mini games.
What'd you catch? I don't know. I don't even remember. It was
Black bass.
Nintendo assured me it was the biggest
Salmon?
one that had been caught all day, though.
Quite the fishing story, Kyle.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what I caught.
No, I don't remember what kind of fish it was, but the thing that I'm getting at is like, I don't know how deep that game goes. Like, you can catch fish, you can keep the fish that you catch in an aquarium, but I don't think you're going to be like unlocking hooks or like,
beards.
Yeah, it's more and it really makes it feel more like a toy, which isn't a bad thing. It's just more of like this weird creative toy that does things that you don't expect it to be able to do.
You talked about trying to break it. Like, how is it easy to break? Like,
it was
more hard to break.
It was more durable than I thought it would. Sure.
Okay.
It's like there's pieces that you just throw away that are like little scraps, and I did ask if I could take one of those, and they said no.
It's cardboard.
Yeah,
You don't want you to learn
in your hair.
I know. I should have just
swapped out.
But I tried to tear it, and I was able to tear it, but it took more effort than I thought.
You're a wimpy ass.
You're really weak.
That's right. That was my takeaway, was that it's more durable than I thought it would be, and it's also thinner than I thought it would be in a weird way. I thought it would be like a thicker cardboard.
What I want to know specifically is, how does it sound when you're reeling up a big fish? Does it just sound like garbage cardboard rubbing on cardboard?
Man, that's kind of tough to say because it was real loud.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of like, if you're playing with the Switch volume up, there's a lot of sound effects like for the clicking of the reel. And
Oh,
stuff
really?
Like that.
Okay.
But yeah, I think you are going to be hearing a lot of cardboard. The robot backpack that you wear, which is another weird thing. I don't know. I just assumed, even though when they first showed it, like you can realize that this isn't how it works. It's not motion controls, right? You're not like holding a Joy-Con in your hand and it's tracking that to be the robot. There's 4 pulleys in your backpack, and basically a camera is watching what level those pulleys are out. So like
for precision.
Yeah. So the way you're playing is like, instead of like doing like a punch motion like you would with a Wii or a Joy-Con, what you're doing is pulling a rope with your hands and then pulling a rope with your feet to like walk around.
That's how robots work.
It was a weird system, and I didn't. It kind of plays almost as you would expect it would, where it was kind of like, I mean, kinda, yeah. Like, I don't want to be too harsh on it because I had a good time like stomping around and blowing up buildings, but it was more like I was instead of using motion controls, it was more like I was manipulating a controller in a weird way. It's like I was manipulating a controller with a string. It was more. I felt more like a puppet than
You were
like
a marionette. You're controlling a marionette that was playing with a 360 pad.
Kind of. Yeah, honestly, like it's closer. It's closer to that than just like straight motion controls.
Yeah.
Which made it kind of interesting and different.
Cardboard, more like crapboard, right?
It's interesting. Pacific Rim, Pacific Dim.
You won't be bored with this card.
What did you think overall? Did you have a takeaway after so much time playing with Labo?
It's really cool. Like it is just cool technology. Like you're giving me this weird face.
Because like we just mentioned, it's silly to think of cardboard as cool technology.
Yeah, it is, but like I guess it's just like it shows that the Joy-Cons are capable of so much more than I thought they were.
Yeah.
Like just the HD rumble, like with the different pitches of rumbling and how much the IR camera is like integrated into this system, and then like being able to scan shapes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the thing that I'm like most interested in seeing is they have a Toy-Con Garage, which I think they've shown off a little bit in trailers, but it's basically a visual programming language that lets you change any element of like any Toy-Con. And like a simple thing that they showed is like those RC cars where it vibrates on one side. they like changed the programming so that you could use the fishing rod motion to like control the RC car. Like you could rotate the fishing rod.
So there's gonna be some freaky coming.
It's gonna be insane. Like they made a bunch of different instruments using the programming and like taped the Switch screen to like brooms and stuff to like so you could pantomime a guitar. I think they've shown this online, but they even showed like stuff that they'd made in house where someone made like a vending machine out of cardboard somehow. And then like I don't even know how it works exactly, but I think like they set it up so like the controller would vibrate and open like a trap door to like drop out a soda.
A cardboard soda?
Life sized?
What they showed is like if you can imagine a mini fridge sized box, and then they had integrated the Switch into it so that you could press like a button on the screen and it would send out like a soda for you.
Okay.
And then like
have your daughter reach up in there and see if she could get
they didn't have it there. It was just a video.
Your arm stuck in it.
But I'm really because like we've seen like there's like little programming languages in like Little Big Planet and Minecraft, but to take that and apply it to like physical cardboard, it's cool. I'm really fascinated to see what people do with it.
Yeah,
like it's going to be really great. And I think that the Toy-Con Garage like programming language is going to go deeper than any of us are really expecting it to. Like it really gives you full control over every element of the Switch, and you can integrate it into a physical piece of cardboard.
Can I use it to play that hidden golf game in the firmware?
Maybe.
And just to cap off the Labo segment, for video viewers now, it's time to reveal, Kyle, that you've actually been made of cardboard this entire time. Peel back that face, sir. Let's go.
Are you going to fix this?
All right, that's stupid. Labo, everybody, April 20th.
I don't know how much of a video game it's going to be, but it's going to be a very cool toy.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
That's wild. Speaking of cool toys and what the Switch can do, Kyle, I think you and I are number one fans of the studio Nap Knock. Knock Games.
Oh man,
Spin the Bottle, Bumpy's Party, one of my favorite test chambers of all time. They made Affordable Space Adventures, which is a very, very cool game.
Yeah.
And now they've jump shipped from Nintendo, like an old school.
At the wrong time.
That's the totally wrong time. I want that team making freaky ass Joy-Con stuff.
Yeah,
with
cardboard. Yeah.
Yes, it seems like they would love it. Instead, they made a game for Sony called Prantix, which is part of that whole PlayLink initiative, which is still mind-boggling. This is like where they have this suite of PS4 games, all to middling degree of quality that you play with your phones. It's kind of like a more elaborate Jackbox, but also 1,000 times clunkier to actually use. If you download an app, you can have the same Wi-Fi network, blah, 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 blah. But this new Prantix game, it's basically just a series of Mario Party style games.
Oof.
And the presentation's awesome from that studio. Like it's all looks like claymation, and they do a really good job of like leaving fake thumbprints all the characters, or maybe they scanned in real thumbprints. I don't know. But the actual core of it, I played a little bit with Leo yesterday, and then went home by myself like a total loser and played some solo Mario Party equivalent. Not a great time. It's a lot of slow tutorials for ultimately a pretty mediocre game.
Yeah.
It's just ties into this larger theme of like, why is Sony paying for these PlayLink games and then not talking about them in any way? Like, I feel like it's somewhere in Sony they're like, oh, this is for a mass audience, this will be great, and then they make it and don't talk about it, and then no one plays it, and then they move on.
Maybe they're being blackmailed.
I think that's probably where it is.
None of these games really turned out, though, right? Like, even the Until Dawn dev team,
Hidden Agenda.
Yeah, that was just
some people kind of like them. It seems like the best that I've played so far, but that Planet of the Apes game,
it just didn't work at a certain point,
even when it finally was patched to be playable, Cork was like, woof, no thanks. Woof, says this monkey. It's kind of a bummer that the game isn't more interesting in and of itself. Like, it rotates through different mini games, but it's a lot of just kind of tilting your phone in a mediocre way.
Hey, speaking of mini games, to make a transition for you,
now we're talking.
You want to talk about Scribblenauts? Showdown? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, let's bring this GI Showdown. Hey.
Well, I want to bring because we're going to kick Reeves off soon, right? So Reeves played with Reiner and I, and guys, we played it.
Yeah, I was there.
New Scribblenauts game came out this week.
Definitely held a controller.
The pitch, it seemed to be at the announcement, was this is 1v1, baby. This is like the Street Fighter Scribblenauts game.
It's Mario Party.
It's Mario Party.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, never mind.
But it is 1v1 because all the mini games are just one-on-one.
Yeah,
really?
Like you just pass a controller.
So it's Mario Party Scribblenauts. That sounds like it could be interesting, having every language available.
The most interesting part is when they tell you, they give you like enter a profession, like an entertainer. Enter an entertainer.
Reeves, go, entertainer, go.
I actually did this. I picked bricklayer.
Okay, yeah, let's set the stage. So it was a dance mini game, and then there's like you press a button and you get like a little roulette to pick topics,
Right,
I guess. And it came up as entertainers.
Yeah.
And Reiner wrote in clown,
And it said, good choice.
good choice, and you wrote in bricklayer.
Yeah. And Reiner got bonus points for that. But I still won the game because apparently I'm a better dance artist.
Yeah.
What is
But
the
it
name?
brought up,
called, right?
it brought up, just like Scribblenauts, it brought up a clown and a bricklayer
Yeah.
as our characters for the dance party.
And then it was
Which is kind of neat.
then it was a mini game of just like pressing up and down and
Dance with a controller.
Yeah,
Basically.
yeah.
So it's Scribblenauts formula. You bring in objects, and then it's just kind of like a mediocre mini game starring that object.
Yeah, I mean, there was another one where we were racing, and we were riding these buggies, and it said, and with the thing that got picked for us was sports objects, and you wrote ball, and it got you basketball, and I wrote javelin, and then I had to carry a javelin, and you had to carry a bunch of basketballs, to the end of a finish line.
Yeah. It doesn't really impact the game itself.
Yeah.
It's kind of more just like a visual treatment. Like whatever you write in there is somehow incorporated into your character.
I mean, there was
or what
one
they're
where
doing.
there was
But a
one where
lot of motion, like mini
Yeah.
games. Like
Okay.
chop trees, stir
Yeah.
a pot.
I feel like that hasn't been done too much for the Switch.
I got a little
Like
bit of
one, two
a WarioWare Switch, or this WarioWare Wii. What was that game called?
Smooth Moves.
Smooth Moves. I got a little bit of that.
That's a very good vibe.
I
to
get
get
Your
your
eyes just came out like the mask when
It's
you
a
did it.
lot.
It's not as good. It's not
Because
as good.
it's motion control
Yeah.
games. It's been a while since I've been playing a multiplayer game and pretending to chop down trees and
Yeah.
stuff, you know.
I mean, based on the little time you've played with it, would you recommend it for anybody?
I would.
Yeah, I don't know.
Entertaining.
It's the thing that sort of underwhelmed me about it was that when you write in words that are integrated into mini games, it doesn't really seem to be a huge factor.
Yeah.
Like he got bonus points for having a clown instead of a bricklayer.
That's a huge factor.
But I mean, Reeves just ended up being the superior dancer in
That's right.
one.
I had clown shoes.
Yeah, and there was,
But you could have written like Cthulhu there.
I think,
I think so, yeah.
and he just Cthulhu would have been there, I guess.
I guess that's okay.
He can't even dance. He doesn't have feet.
It feels just like a minigame collection with this, there happens to be this element of it where at the beginning of each game you can write in anything you want.
Did Fifth Cell make it?
Don't think they did.
Oh, really?
But on that recommendation,
The art's good.
question,
Yeah.
there is a mode that is kind of more like traditional Scribblenauts. I don't think it's super deep. It looks like there are 3 or 4 levels where you just kind of walk around and you can solve puzzles with people. So if you really miss that core Scribblenauts game, there is a version of it here.
It's also on your phone for much cheaper.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, the minigame stuff was kind of underwhelmed me a little bit. But I mean, there's still that interesting element of Scribblenauts where writing a word and it just always appearing is weird.
Still pretty
and
impressive.
cool.
And
Yeah.
so it's like Switch, PS4, Xbox One.
I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure.
I played it on Switch. It's $40, which seems pricey.
A little pricey.
but,
Speaking of expensive, Fear Effect said is the least expensive
Yeah.
way to develop a game.
It'll cost you your soul.
So this is part of that bizarre Square Enix initiative, collective, I forget exactly what they call it, where they're licensing out their prized IP and giving it to
Anybody, apparently,
independent developers to work with it. And so these people took the Fear Effect license, which was what originally? Like a survival RPG?
It was like a Resident Evil style.
It played a lot like the original Resident Evils, but it had a really cool anime look to it.
Right.
It was very Ghost in the
on
Shell
PS1,
style world.
way back when.
Yeah.
For cell shading, that's probably that's too much to say. Yeah, but it was definitely the earliest version of cell shading, I think.
Yeah.
That's a good question, though. The first cell-shaded game.
Yeah.
Reiner, you're a walking history book. What do you... I mean that with all due respect.
Boy, I don't know.
13?
Cell damage?
Yeah, that was PS2.
I know.
So Fear Effect among the first, if not the first.
Yeah, it was very early. It looked really cool, I think, for the day. And even I went back and looked at old videos for this review, and I'm like, actually, it still kind of has a very interesting visual style.
Okay, but now it's not that.
It is not that gameplay-wise. They're going off of the same story, so they're following the same characters and writing I think it's a sequel. It doesn't really tie into the original story at all.
Okay.
But yeah, it's now the gameplay is a top-down game that just destroys you
Tactics,
emotionally.
right?
Yeah, it's
like run and gun,
tactics,
but you can slow it down and do program your movements for your team.
Yeah,
But
top
the way it ended up working out is just the enemies just kept running into my bullets.
Yeah, you can pause the game whenever you want and issue commands, but there's no point in doing that, I found, because the gameplay is so slow that way that it's just easier to play in real time and just shoot dudes, take cover, shoot people. The AI is really stupid, so usually I could like hide and let my AI companions just take out the enemies for me.
Yeah, you can use stealth too. If
You can use
go in
stealth.
undetected.
I write about all the problems in my review, but like I had moments where I was stealthing through a place and an enemy popped out right in front of me. So, and then also your like movement speed is so slow that you can barely overtake people as they're walking. So most of the time you try to catch up with them and they turn around right as they get to the end of their routine.
What?
Yeah, I don't recommend playing it as a stealth game. I don't recommend playing it as an action game.
Why did you give it an 8.75?
I was just a big fan of the original world. I gave it a 2.
2 out of 10.
It's almost a 10 minus 3.
Reeves and I bonded over this game,
Yeah.
by the way. We were both playing it like, I got to a puzzle and it's like, I have no idea like even what the logic of this puzzle is.
Yeah. I had to play it for review. I'm actually impressed Reiner played it for, I don't even know why. Why did you play it?
I'm just a big fan.
Reiner ended up at a point, like the very first puzzle where it bugged out on you.
Yeah.
And
I had
then
to reset and then I got through it.
the
second puzzle I got stuck on then.
I had a problem later on in the game where a different puzzle bugged out on me and I couldn't beat it, so I had to reload that level and do it all over again.
And all the puzzles are different, but they don't really tell you how they work at all.
This is such a bummer because I think that idea, the initiative from Square, is really cool.
I love it.
Like we have a pretty substantial amount of IP just sitting around. Let's try and work with younger teams or newer teams and make something cool. It just sucks that now this is the number one pillar or example of their work so far.
It's really sad. I liked that original property. I remember playing that game and liking it, and I know nobody sets out to make a bad game initially. I assume they just didn't have enough money or didn't have enough time, or maybe the team was too small. But the product they released is not good, and nobody should play this. It's sad.
It went to Kickstarter, right?
Yeah, and it came out on Kickstarter, so they earned
Puzzling that it was like
money.
Square Enix is a publisher, yet it went to Kickstarter.
Maybe Square should just, instead of this initiative, which who knows how it'll go in the future, I hope better things for Gex, wherever the hell they drag out, or the pits of hell. But just make everything a Go franchise. Just make Fear Effect Go. Just make Gex Go.
Those are fun games.
Vagrant Story Go. Just keep it rolling.
Final Fantasy Go.
Yeah,
I'm surprised they haven't done that.
that's got to be in the pipeline somewhere. But 2 out of 10, don't play.
Yeah, I did spend about like 5-10 minutes on Slack talking to Kyle, trying to convince him to play it. 'Cause I thought maybe it was his kind of game.
I do like the original Fear Effect. I like that.
I think there's something to it, Kyle, where you might kind of dig it. Honestly.
You should spend a lot of time with it, Kyle.
I mean, I in your review you said you didn't even realize you were fighting like the end game protagonist until or antagonist. Like you didn't even know who the antagonist was until you were fighting him at the end of the game.
Mr. Sedna himself. What does that name mean?
Oh, good question.
I actually don't know. After playing the game,
I think that was the bad guy.
yeah, the name of the bad guy is Sedna.
Yeah, spoiler.
Oh, God.
right.
Wow. All right.
Oh, cool. I'll check it out then.
Oh yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Totally.
That's such a good recommendation. You should give Kyle a high five about
Oh.
it. JV Goldie, welcome to the show, man.
Hey,
wow. What's up? Oh, man, I'll tell you what's up. Pit People. Yeah, it's a weird name. So this is the game that was called the fourth game 4 from Behemoth for years and years and years, and now it's finally out. Pit People. It's been early access for a while, right?
Yeah, like a year.
Okay, so this is the team that brought us. Who can forget?
I mean, this is the team that created Newgrounds too. Like Tom Fulp was like one of the founders of Newgrounds, that Flash site.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, they didn't create Flash games, but they were like one of the biggest names in Flash games for a long time.
Yeah, and they've definitely carried that look moving forward. But Kyle, help me out.
Alien Hominid, there we go.
Right.
Which is
Castle
maybe
Crashers.
like one of the first legitimate indie games, if we want to get really fancy about it.
Interesting.
Castle Crashers.
Castle Crashers, and the last one that I can never
Battle Block Theater.
Battle Block Theater. That's right. And so this is the turn-based strategy game. It's fun talking about Into the Breach last week, and now we're talking about Pit People. Vaguely similar concept of we want to kind of simplify tactics a little bit. Pit People seems to go to a much simpler degree than Into the Breach. So what do you think of the game so far?
It's definitely one of those games where like the gameplay itself feels like it's more like a vehicle to get to something else. And in that case, it's like the humor and jokes here are really good. Like it's sort of that Monty Python brand of humor where it's just, wacky and all over the place, and some of it doesn't make sense, but it's still really funny.
Oh, really? You like
I love it. Like, the strategy system is fine. It's robust. It's kind of unique because it's a hexagon sort of board. and you're moving units, but you can't order them to really attack another single unit.
They auto attack.
Yeah, they auto attack. So you have this issue where, like, okay, you have two enemy units, right in front of you, and you move like your archer into, their range. They'll just randomly fire on one of them, and that creates sort of an unpredictability bit that can be exciting sometimes, but is often frustrating. Like, for example, one time I had an archer fire on an enemy that was standing next to the enemy I wanted to target, but that enemy died, and it happened to be one of the units that explodes upon dying. So it did this huge area damage attack that like damaged 4 of my foes. So that was kind of cool, and you'll often run into stuff like that, but it can be frustrating, and it feels like so much of the strategy isn't actually on the board, it's in preparation, because you get to dictate what your party is made up of.
And their equipment and everything.
Yeah. So, for example, like, you can have, like, if you want just 6 dudes with swords, that's a really bad idea. But, it's you usually want a healer, and there are other choices you can have. Like, if you want a big Cyclops kind of monster that is a bruiser kind of class that can do a lot of damage, it takes up 2 slots instead of 1.
Interesting.
So a lot of the strategy in the game is actually in preparation, and that can be frustrating because in the story missions, there are some missions that are like, they have special objectives. Like, one of them, you have to murder an entire retirement home filled with cupcake people within 10 turns.
Jesus Christ!
And it sounds awful, but it's really funny. Because, like, one of your antagonists, his name is Jerkimedes. It's pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it isn't really like subtlety, so he's turned off.
Yeah, you're right. That's why I don't like Shape of Water. But no, so I started this game as well, and
it's bonkers.
It's obnoxious to a high degree. Like, the announcer is overbearing. The characters all sound just like Canadians in South Park.
Yeah, they do. They have that sort of Terrence and Phillip kind of talk.
But if they were speaking Simlish,
yeah,
it is grating. To the point, grating's maybe my viewpoint on it, but to the point of, like, even like the main hub area, the main town, every building's like jumping around like it's made of jello and it's in a silly symphony. It is just so overbearing.
Yeah, and I don't think I mind it that much. I could definitely like see how people like, as someone who like grew up with sort of that aesthetic and played like Flash cartoons on Newgrounds all the time.
And you're just kind of generally obnoxious.
Yeah, exactly. I'm super obnoxious. But it doesn't bother me. There are definitely some parts where I'm like, oh, okay, that's an interesting choice. Like, for example, at any point when you're roaming the world map with your carriage, you can press Q on your keyboard or whatever button on your Xbox, and you can poop. You can make your noble steed poop. So, Game of the Year sort of stuff there.
It's like Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yeah,
I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
I'm feeling it now.
Yeah, suddenly Reiner's interested. He's really interested.
Something that I didn't expect starting it up is you have an option of permadeath.
Yeah, you do. That's a choice you can make if you want to hate yourself.
Is that the way to go?
No, absolutely not. Because, like, in other games that I like, because I love permadeath, but, like, there's a level...
World does as well, right?
Oh, boy. But, like, XCOM and Fire Emblem, like... What? Those games that have permadeath that I like, you have complete control over your unit's actions. But to introduce a permadeath in a game where, like, there's an element of unpredictability and, like, how your unit is going to react to something, and it doesn't have anything to do with, like, oh, they've been hit with, like, a status ailment or something. It's just, that's how the game works. That really bothers me. It feels like it's so weighted against you to the point that it's unfair, like, from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't play with permadeath on. That seems like a real way to get screwed real easily.
And not too far into the game, you get nets as an option for, like, capturing other people. Is that a big part of the game? Is kind of like a Pokemoning your way through and capturing other units?
I mean, honestly, I captured like 4 units as I was going through the story, and I didn't really use them that much. Like, I got my team together. I got my dirty dozen or whatever together. And I stuck with them for the majority of the game. I think I replaced 1 unit towards the end, which was this Pixie class that's like an aerial class that can just dominate with explosive attacks and stuff.
Okay.
But, on the whole, it didn't... There are an abundance of systems in Pit People that seem superfluous. Like, it's meant to wow you in a way, but you don't ever really have to use them. Like, for example, all that equipment stuff, most of it's cosmetic. Like, the armor and stuff, it doesn't really add anything. It feels like it's just like, oh, here's a goofy hat.
Right.
Which, that's cool for customizing your characters, but it's just the way they present it, that it suggests that it's going to be, like, more involved than it is.
Yeah.
But it's not really.
So overall, maybe not as tactical and as intelligent as Into the Breach.
Yeah, I was talking with Miller with this, like, 5 minutes before I came down to record this. It was real hard following up Into the Breach with Pit People in terms of like what I was playing, because it was like, oh, this is not nearly as involved as Into the Breach. But that's kind of unfair because Into the Breach is just so good.
Yeah.
Like it's really damn good. Like it's one of the best strategy games I've played in a long time.
Wow.
So, Pit People, which has a robust strategy system, it's fine. It makes some interesting decisions that don't always play out. But it's still a fun, solid game. I dug it.
Okay.
Yeah.
You also played a new game from a company called 3D Realms.
Wow, I've never heard of them.
Reiner, have you heard of this group, 3D Realms? They came by the office. It was one of those things where it's like, hey, 3D Realms is coming in. It's like, I don't know what that means. Is Duke Nukem going to walk through the door? Is
John
George
St. John?
Yeah, is it George Broussard? Like, I have no idea who 3D Realms is at this point. So, who are they at this point in 2018, and what are they making?
Okay, all right. So to back up for a little bit, for viewers and listeners who don't know, 3D Realms was the developer who brought us like Duke Nukem 3D and Shadow Warrior, basically a bunch of the shooters that were responsible for making the game industry go from, like, say, Doom clones to first-person shooters. Like, they were the ones who really branched out that genre to something beyond Doom clones.
Some old Texas boys, right?
Yes.
Okay, the Texas first-person crowd.
Yeah, and so Iron Maiden, for a long time, they started making, like, 3D games and publishing games. Like, they actually produced the first Max Payne, was another thing that they did.
Wait, what?
Yeah, way back when they produced the first Max Payne.
What do you mean produced?
Well, I mean, that's just what it says. They produced it.
But Remedy designed it?
Yeah, Remedy designed it and developed it. And I'm not sure. I don't think they.
It must have been the same role as like a producer on a film, where they just helped, right? Oversaw it.
Oh, that's bizarre.
Yeah. It's not published. It's produced. It was interesting, but they did a bunch of stuff after like Shadow Warrior and Blood. That it's kind of little stuff, and then Duke Nukem Forever happened, and no one really likes to talk about the game.
Well, no, it's Gearbox in theory.
Yeah, that was Gearbox and 3D Realms. So 3D Realms, basically, they had a complete talent change, and it's a completely different company now. And they were going back and making the way that their vice VP, Frederick Schreiber, came to pitch the game to us was like, okay, so go back to 1996 and imagine if we never got games like Quake and like shooters never went 3D, and we just kept on going with like, sort of these sprite pixelated shooter games like Duke Nukem. This is what you get, and the game's called Iron Maiden. It's a choice they made, and it basically plays like Duke Nukem, but with like starring a woman who's a bomb disposal expert and has like crazy weapons. Like one of them is a bowling ball, like small bowling ball that you can throw onto the ground, and it's a bomb that will home in on enemies and just make them explode. And it's just ludicrous and absurd. And
it's goofy.
Yeah, it's goofy. It's goofy all the way.
It looks like it's from that era.
Yeah, no, because they didn't emulate the engine. They literally they improved the build engine and then they made the game in it. So it's made on the same tech that
why would they do so much confidence?
Well, the way they said it is they felt like there is more level of craft than doing that. Like every weapon is like handcrafted and painted and this or that, and the world feels more reactive and it gets some more option level design, and they just really like the look of it.
Everything Strafe was kind of going a slightly different thing, but it seems like kind of that throwback first-person shooter.
Whenever you decided,
in terms of all the genres, it seems still relatively untapped for making old school first-person shooter experiences. So does it feel like an improvement on that? Is it the Broken Age equivalent of this genre?
Yeah, I was talking with Cork about it when we did the new gameplay today, because like I played those shooters coming up, but I was more of the generation that came after like Half-Life and those sorts of games were my jam. But when I was talking with Cork about it, he says, "Yeah, this seems authentic. This seems better." So I enjoyed my time with Iron Maiden. I thought it was very fun. I didn't really like Strafe that much as a throwback shooter because of the roguelike elements that they introduced. But this seems more like an authentic experience, like linear and really fun and goofy. And there's secrets everywhere. And all the world's very reactive. Like you can mess with anything you see, like control panels and stuff, and it'll give a reaction. Like you can shoot it or go over and press it, which I like.
Of course, yeah, you're gonna mess with toilets and stuff.
Yeah, but right now they have the whole game's not out yet. It's a weird thing. They're calling it early access, but what it is it's a 3-hour campaign that if you pre-order the game, you get access to, and it's standalone from the main game. So you have like a 3-hour campaign that you can play through that has some of the weapons and enemies.
Disconnected from the main game?
Disconnected from the main game.
Weird.
I can't even explain to you.
Reiner,
my emotions
I saw you wince when you said it's not quite early access. You're adding another category there?
Well, it's early access.
We're going home.
Used to mean something, and now it's like just a general term used for any type of release. Like the game could be beta, alpha, whatever the hell this is. It sounds almost like a Ground Zero. Yeah, it's more like Ground Zero. I'm sorry.
And you seemed to do an interview you did. Was it with the producer?
Yeah, it was just the VP built it. Yeah.
Okay. How would people find that interview?
It's online at GameSpot.com. What should they Google? 3D Realms and the art of the first person in space. Like what we titled it.
And he's passionate.
He is so passionate. He's just like very bubbly and smiling all the time. And he's talking about, oh yeah, I love eviscerating people in first person shooters. It's great.
No, it's real good. Like, it's really cool.
Yeah,
It's cool to see, like, we're almost moving out of, like, NES callbacks, Super Nintendo callbacks, and now we're kind of getting into that almost 32, 64-bit era
Like
callbacks.
Never Stop Sneaking and stuff like that.
I know this is, like, a little beyond, like, 64, but, like, it feels like we're kind of getting into that early 3D nostalgia.
Who's going to bring back GoldenEye controls?
It's gonna happen.
Right?
Can't play it any other way.
Basically, I guess, what was it? Oh, the split screen game. Oh, do you remember where like you don't have your own screen, you have to look at the screen sheet?
Screen sheet.
Yeah, so like that's basically
That kind of
going for that type of vibe. Yeah, but finally we're getting to the good games to be remade. I agree, Ryan.
I can't wait till like 15 years from now when everyone's just sort of doing their own versions of the PlayStation 2 games or whatever. They're just like, oh yeah, Beyond Good and Evil, Beyond Good and Evil, but not Beyond Good and Evil.
Throwback to Uncharted 1, the good one, damn it!
The good one. That's the subtitle.
That's weird. Davey, that's awesome, man. Anything else you want to say?
No, I'm good.
Any thoughts on Rust?
It's not a great game. I would not play it.
Okay, debatable. Your reviews on the site. All right, JV, you ready to get to that? You want to do emails?
Yeah, let's do it.
This is very natural. Let's do it.
Your transitions are just beautiful. I love them.
Email. And welcome back to the Informer Show. I'm still here. We also have Ben Reeves back in town.
What? Hey.
The Ben's back in town. Everybody else is still here. We have a bunch of wonderful emails that people sent into podcast@GameInformer.com. They sent in news stories they want feedback on the show, questions about the industry, questions about Game Informer's past, questions about Game Informer's future, questions about games, thoughts on games, game pitches, everything under the sun. Whatever you think will make the show better, podcast@GameInformer.com. We're going to read off some of our favorites and then all unanimously agree on what the absolute best email to batch is, and then shift that person out something very nice.
Oh, so you're not even going to continue that challenge?
I don't think so.
Really?
It's fine, but I think people got the idea.
Okay,
Blue Point Games won it in the end. We should also point out that just in case we sound like morons right now, we have not seen the Nintendo Direct yet. The Nintendo Direct that went live on Thursday, we recorded this before that, so I'm sure it was interesting, and I'm sorry we weren't talking about it. Also,
can't wait for that big game.
Oh, the big one.
I'm excited for it. I gotta say.
Speaking of fun challenges, things along the way that have been a good time, we have a grand conclusion to Reeves. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's the hashtag GI Show challenge.
Oh, finally.
Oh,
we got our own music.
Hell yeah. Hashtag GI Show challenge.
Coming in your headphones right now.
Oh, yeah, you have headphones on, dude. So what this was, right, people would share the podcast with a friend, subscribe, take a picture of a bunch of phones playing it, or subscribe to the show, then we randomly pick from the people that did that. Each picture of the phone is an entry, and that person gets to be on an upcoming episode of the Game Informer Show. I have a winner, ladies and gentlemen.
What?
So a lot of people submitted, some incorrectly, and I felt bad, but we were pretty strict about the rules here, so we kept it very strict. The highest was this person named Rem on Twitter. They had 12. Other REM. Michael Stipe entered. Gary McRae, friend of the show, he submitted a lot. Edgar Vasquez, friend of the show, who just met at the 300
Yeah, we've
party.
already met that guy.
Yeah, lovely man. He submitted a bunch. Corey Sheldon animated this crazy thing. Matt McKenna also submitted a lot. Thanks to everybody that submitted the hashtag GI Show challenge. There's going to be one winner. And so this person will get to Skype into the show. We'll reach out after this, and the podcast goes live to figure out when they want to do it. They can Skype in for an email segment. You guys ready to learn who won the hashtag GI Show challenge?
Oh boy.
Drum roll, please. And the winner goes to Rem.
Michael Stipe!
Michael Stipe and the rest of the art students at East Junior High in Boise, Idaho. Now, look, we can Skype in the entire art class, but it might be a cluster F, so just Mr. or Mrs. Rem. I would love to know who you are.
All caps, R, capital E, capital M?
It was a confusing Twitter name. Rem was the easiest way to pronounce it.
Okay, is he a student or is it the teacher?
I assume it's a teacher. I just got
That's fair. Entire class, hey, you guys do this.
No, that's okay with the rules. I know why.
Yeah, you can take up your students' time. There's no rule against that in any possible way. We're looking forward to talking to you, Rem. We'll reach out for sure. Congratulations. And thanks again to everybody that participated in the GI Show Challenge.
You guys did it. Holy hashtag GI Show.
What are you doing? People misspeak all the time. You can't do that.
But you're being recorded, so it's funny.
We gotta keep this going. We gotta keep this hashtag thing going.
Yeah, why not?
We'll definitely do it again in the future with a different theme. Reeves has been a good champion internally of like, oh, we should do different themes where there's different challenges associated, not always the same way. So we'll definitely do it again at some point and bring back his wonderful music, which should be slowly lowering itself right about now. Leo Vader in the booth. One more round! Okay. Bunch of great emails. Two people, Brandon Butler and Timothy Turby, both wrote in to say, hey, that Scooby-Doo adventure game the guy pitched, they totally made it on the Sega Genesis. And apparently it really captured the art style. And I looked at it. It's like this awesome Maniac Mansion-looking Scooby-Doo adventure game. Also, Jose Hero writes in and says, congrats on the 300 episode live show. I think it's the first live podcast I've ever listened to. Usually instant skips. Thank you.
That was Jose, so he
damn
close. 299 of them, and he listened to one?
No, it's the live show. I totally get it, because I'm a huge fan of podcasts, and live shows are normally a disaster to listen to, so Leo and I were very focused on let's make this a good experience for the audio listeners. So hopefully we repeated enough of what the crowd was saying so you guys weren't out of the loop, and I appreciate it.
Remember when you made it a disaster in like 5 minutes when you knocked over a beer?
What are you doing, Ryan?
I like how on the podcast recordings, Andy was very kind. He was like, "Oh, somebody knocked over a beer."
I think it was Miller. Show me footage of me knocking over that beer. It doesn't exist.
You and Leo did a good job.
Thank you so much.
But that beer was the best.
Look, I know! I should have known that I'm the clumsiest person on earth and I should not have anything within my flailing arm's reach.
Remember when he also misspoke hashtag?
Oh, it's good.
Man.
I think he said hashtag.
All right,
let's change veins.
Hey, remember that disaster
you read
date
this?
that went on in
Sure,
high school?
I really love the Game Forward show.
Which
You do a
one are
good
we
job.
reading? This one?
Jay Krug!
Oh, hey, Jay Krug. He says, hey, Jay from Cary, North Carolina. It's not God's country, apparently. Congrats on the 300th issue. This new list got me thinking. Would you ever consider creating a top 100 or so?
You idiot! This is worse than a live show!
A top 100 or so of the Brarsht games based purely on the game itself. In other words, try, I know it's hard, to remove nostalgia and impact on the industry and base the list solely on how God gave the games are now.
How God gave the games.
Lists often happen the same top 10 games because the industry's impact is so heavily warded.
You're proving your point.
All right. The heavy rotation. Congratulations. So his point, you couldn't decipher that, was what if we made 100 of the most fun to play now games, which definitely was a discussion. But Birds had the great feedback. A good point of like, hey, this is 300 issues of Game Informer. It's about celebrating history. This list should be all history.
Well, that's what we did with 200, right?
Right.
And 100.
Yeah, to a certain degree, I think maybe our yearly top 50 is kind of like that. Like, these are the best games right now, you know?
That's true, but it's just fun having the Omega list of that.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, it's an interesting idea.
It's an interesting idea to get Wizardry off that list once and for all. I
do think it's interesting if we ever do this again, if we would do, I don't know, Reiner, if you have thoughts on it, but like, I would be interested in actually doing what he's saying. I think it's good that we did 300 the way we did it, but now that we've done that, I don't know, if we make it to 400,
yeah,
it'd be cool to do something different, honestly.
Yeah, as we put the list together, obviously we had different ideas we threw around for, I won't reveal them all, but there's a couple ideas we had for lists for the future that were like, let's do that.
Yeah.
You know, focused on the history of games, but we do have some other ideas that aren't just like the 300, right?
Yeah. In the throes of laying out the 300 list, I did hear Reiner often say, we're not doing 400. We are not doing 400.
It's too many. It's just too many.
That was a nightmare.
Ben Johnson from Robbinsdale, Minnesota, God's Country. He was at the event. He's a very nice gentleman. I also know a Ben Johnson.
What?
Wait a minute. Your Ben Johnson?
Uncle Ben?
Anyways, that's funny. He says, I just wanted to congratulate you on 300 issues and say what a fantastic time I had meeting all of you. Thank you very much. He lists all the people he loves. That's very nice. He says, my question is, besides reaching 300 issues, what is something you never thought you'd be able to experience or take part in as a Game Informer staff member when you first started? Also, what was your favorite brew at the Fold?
The Game Informer 300.
I would say 300 is really good. I would say their War and Peace is also really good.
That's true. Favorite or something you participated in that you never thought you participated in?
Man, I remember before I even started, I read the magazine, obviously, because it's a great magazine. And every year...
Is that right?
April,
thank you.
Yeah. Every year in April, we do the Game Enforcer, which we just finished wrapping up for this year, actually. And I always thought it was hilarious. And I was always like, man, it'd be cool to do something like that. And so, like, my first year here, I was like, oh, man, like, holding, like, a kid with a crush, like, hoping they would just ask me out, like, hey, can I be part of this Game Enforcer thing?
It'd be like going on a date, but instead of, getting to know somebody, you would just shout out the suggestion, Polka mayonnaise.
Hey, that was my suggestion this year.
Did it make the cut?
Yeah, I don't think anybody else is able to listen anymore because there's too much laughing going on. It did not make it into the issue, so.
I'm with you. That's a big one for me, too. Or just anything, being a video person, like anything that I throw out there that's writing focused, I'm always very scared of. Like, I don't want to write this feature myself, but what if we did something about this? And Game Enforcer is big up on that list. Where I'll see, like, come up with ideas. It's like, I don't want to write the article about it. I'll just be the lazy ideas man and then go back to video, I guess.
So we're talking about, we have, like, a full team doing Game Enforcer. Like, I kid you not, like, maybe more people on staff for one feature outside of maybe the 300 list than we usually have. Back in the day when we started that, like, there was Lame Pro and Game Pro.
Yeah.
I was like, can we do this, Andy? He's like, yeah, go ahead and do it. So I did it by myself. Like,
so you came up with the name Game Enforcer?
I think that was a collective effort of, like, what could we call this dumb thing? But it was just always one writer on those through time up until now. It's like one of the biggest undertakings we have.
That would be tough doing it on your own.
I think it would. I remember there was one
quality
year.
shows.
There was one year, like 10, 12 years ago, where like the Matrix was new, and like one of the items in gear was like Neo's, like cereal, so Neo from the Matrix. But I get it. Yeah, I thought it was fun.
Holy, thank you again, Reeves.
That's the level of quality.
Pristine. Is there something else that stands out to you guys that you never thought you'd be able to participate in?
So you're talking about like within Game Informer, just like generally.
When you start, it's like, God, I never thought I'd be able to do this. Like, podcasting, maybe one of them, but.
Yeah, well, I think of like, I guess I don't think with like specifically the Game Informer is what I'm thinking of, like more like things I got to do in the industry. Like the one that comes to mind is like being basically I got to spend more time with Breath of the Wild than anyone else up to a point. And I remember like when Wind Waker came out, it was like one of the first games that I like pre-ordered and bought the day it came out and stayed up late playing it. And I remember even thinking like, which was a stupid thought to have, but I was like, man, I've probably played more of this than anybody else at this point. I have it on day one. I've been playing it for hours. I bet I've seen stuff that no one else has seen, and which is absurd, obviously. But to actually have that experience where it was like, no one else has played as much Zelda as I have at this moment.
I thought it was weird too when like you were playing and you stood up and kind of like blocked the TV screen. So the reason I couldn't see it, just so you could in fact brag that you had seen more than we had.
In retrospect, that was rude, and I apologize for that. But it was important to me.
I never thought I'd get to make fun of Kyle playing.
That's a big part of that play session.
Just me and Anson constantly making fun of Kyle.
Well,
every time he died.
Nate Bildorf from Nintendo's also there. Making fun of him, which I don't know if you guys watched the Dice Awards at all, but Nate Bildorf went up and collected all the awards, and everyone just labeled him Nintendo guy.
Oh, really?
Such a good job collecting those
It's a
awards.
good name for him, frankly. He's the Nintendo guy.
Legally changed his name. Reiner, was it?
Going to Skywalker Ranch. Like, I think that's just cool. Like that crossover to movies. I never thought would be possible. Like, obviously there was LucasArts, but I never thought I'd be sitting in like George Lucas's house, basically, or like his private theater, checking out Phantom Menace stuff. Like,
if it's literally the Skywalker Ranch, shouldn't they make it like a desert?
Yeah, it should be.
They should dress up like that.
Yeah.
They should. Yeah.
Pitching Game Informer jokes.
Yeah, they were going over well.
Like Polka mayonnaise.
After waiting another 11 months here.
We got a real Polka mayonnaise on our hands here.
That reminds me, I never thought I'd meet like Stan Lee or like Shigeru Miyamoto. people like that. It's like, oh, I got to interview those people. That's cool. Something I never even like dreamed would be possible.
And now we go in the room with them. We're like,
oh, you again? Yeah, that's exactly.
It's exactly the relation we have to Stanley's cameos in the films. Okay, here we go.
Contractual obligation.
Chuck from Gorham, Maine. Gorham. Flows off the tongue. Says, hey, love the top 300 list. A question concerning it, though. Very concerned about it. Overwatch got placed at 22, which I'm fine with, given its newness, he says. My question is this. If it continues to perform as it has, new content, huge fan base, thriving esports league, would you expect to see it rise in future lists? And do you think it has the potential to crack the top 10 in the future?
it would have to have like crazy new modes that change what it is. If they just keep adding on heroes, yeah, maybe it goes up a few ticks if they're all high quality like they are now. But yeah, it would need like some big game changing moment to really make it rise to top 10 level.
Or if they keep
it's on my top 10 personal top 10
all
list,
time.
but yeah,
if they keep releasing content for like Super Metroid and Legend of Zelda that brings those games down, I could see that too. That was a joke. But
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah,
though.
we'll work on it.
Hayden, boy, someday
come
we're
back
gonna
to
crack on.
think about it. We'll come back to it.
yeah. Give me 11 months.
Get a writer's team of Game Informers right here. Hayden Rogers from Corbett, Oregon says, "Dear GI Joes," that's us. He says, "You got an email last week about Dan Tag sounding like an Overwatch League announcer. I had the same experience. I don't know his name, but one of the announcers sounds exactly like Tag. That's very strange. Renner, have you heard this?
A guy that sounds like Vantak in Overwatch League?
Oh, here we go. Specifically, Chris from Fitchburg, Wisconsin says, "Hi, I'm emailing to confirm what an emailer wrote on last week's show. There is a commentator in Overwatch League who sounds a lot like Dan Tag. His name is Eric Lonquist, a.k.a. DOA, and he's from Minnesota originally, so maybe there's some blood relation there with the Tag clan. Leo the Booth, I think we have a clip here for comparison.
However, it does die somehow, some way. He fell into the pit. I was going to say, fell into the pit here. Ooh, Carpe gets the counter snipe on the baby bait. Dak brings him up. Oh, and then Dak goes down. Oh, no! Carpe totally going wild on this Widowmaker.
It's like if Tag understood enthusiasm.
yeah.
Well,
I was going to
these
say,
guys,
way too enthusiastic.
yeah, these guys smile, when they're doing the
Right.
commentary. I've never seen Tech do that.
I think I can hear it.
I totally hear it.
I hear it, yeah.
I was going in skeptical, but now totally hear it. Good job, everybody. Thank you for fixing that. Scott Campbell, friend of the show, he writes in, he says, what is one game you still can't believe happened? Mine would be Sonic the Hedgehog for the Game Boy Advance. It just doesn't seem right. How about you? Something that seems absurd that the gaming industry, businessmen greenlit, or that developers got away with creating. That's a good one.
It still blows my mind that Conker's Bad Fur Day ever existed.
Especially that they remade it on an Xbox.
Oh, and then they remade it. That's also super weird.
Yeah.
But this was like this cutesy platformer. It was in an April issue of like EGM back in the day. I remember reading it. I was like, oh, this has got to be an April Fool's joke. Like, it was just so absurd. And the fact that it's like a mature game with like blood and like boobs and stuff.
It is weird.
It's a super weird game.
Do you think Miyamoto has ever touched the controller and played that game?
No.
Maybe the original version of it.
Yeah.
The kiddie platformer version.
Oh, like the prototype version?
Yeah.
But then once he found out it had like bad poop jokes, he's like, no.
Yeah, I could also see Miyamoto surprising us, just being like, "Yeah, that was my idea to just make it incredibly vulgar." And
That's
like,
my favorite N64 game.
Yeah. DC Senpai.
That's what he would say.
That's what he would say. That one holds up, man.
The one, it's kind of similar to Sonic, but the one I thought of immediately that's just so bizarre is not only the fact that they're PlayStation mascots in a way, but when they released those Game Boy Advance games from Vicarious Visions that had Spyro and Crash like swapping worlds on a Nintendo handheld.
Was it Crash Purple and Spyro Orange, or was it
Yeah,
The other way.
Crash
Spyro Orange? Yeah, because they mixed the colors. But what a weird thing.
Yeah.
The other one that
Bad
is just a licensing nightmare that I've raved too much about on the show, but Beatles Rock Band. I don't think we have gotten on our knees and thanked the good Lord upstairs enough for the fact that that crazy thing happened, and it's amazing.
Yeah, it was good.
For sure. Yeah. No, we all agree. The ones that come to mind for me are ones that like weren't hugely successful, but really ambitious that ended up getting sequels. Like Darksiders, I really liked that game, but even playing it, I was like, I don't think we're seeing a part 2 to this. I don't think it's. And Bayonetta was another one, you know?
Oh,
like,
sure.
Loved games that just did not sell well enough, kind of thing, you know? Or like Okami Den on DS. Or
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, so many sequels that came out that no one talked about.
Yeah.
I would go with Knights of the Old Republic. Just taking a deep dive on Star Wars lore like that, going thousands of years prior to everything else. But also, I know there was comics at the time, but I believe George Lucas said you can do something new, or we have this new movie, Attack of the Clones, coming out. We should probably focus on that. So that could have been like a game time decision on which way they went. And I'm surprised they didn't go with the movie tie-in.
Yeah, and it's so fascinating that now it's like the #1 fan request for any of the new movies. And I love that. I don't know, maybe it'll end up being true, but it's funny with like the Game of Thrones creators making the Star Wars movies now. They're like, well, they're used to working in the past. They should do the Knights of the Old Republic. Like it stacks up that way. Yeah, that's a good one, Renner. Diana from Florida says, hello. I always try to say the opening lines of the podcast along with you, Ben, and I just cannot talk that fast. Hello and welcome to New I can't even do the
God, you're so bad at this,
But look, she's totally right. She said, I truly cannot do it. I don't know if I have a super slow tongue or even a super fast one. I do say that too fast. I should slow that down in future episodes.
I mean, it's probably one of those things where you.
Let's hear what it sounds like when it's slow. When you're like really thinking, like, I'm going to take my time on this one.
Okay, so normally it's, hello and welcome to a new episode of the Game Informer Show. I'm your host, Ben Hansen. And I remember one time I thought, I'm going to relax this. It was when Tim Turry was here, and so I opened it up and I was like, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Game Informer Show. And Tim, is the only time he ever did this, where he stopped me and stopped the recording, and he's like, you sound so bored. We can't do it that way. And so I think I have that Tim insecurity in my mind about it.
It's also one of those
I
things.
kind of really like that.
You've said it like 100 times by now, so like
Over that, yeah.
it's just like a pattern.
Yeah.
Muscle memory.
You're in front of a fireplace.
Mm.
You're in a silk robe.
Hello.
You have a scotch next to you.
Mm-hmm.
Deliver it.
Hello. Welcome.
You're dying? Are you an old man?
Hey, can we do it without the laughter now?
Oh, yeah. So it'd be like, Reeves, you know what it sounds like. Take it away. Imagine like Ava from Metal Gear Solid 3 is on the bear rug next to you. It's the entire end sequence there. And it's like,
Hello.
you're not there herself.
I was very confused.
And then Kyle's the bear rug that learned to talk, and he's also introducing the show.
Wait, am I a bear?
Look, thank you, Diana, for writing in. It's very nice.
confusing.
As a person who hits the little option on Netflix to skip the intro,
Yeah.
I am a fan of the quick start.
Thank you.
Get to the episode.
Also, the hello and welcome. That's a Jeff Green reference. That's how it used to open GFW Radio. That's probably a small detail. It's too nerdy. Luke from St. Paul writes in and says, hey, Game Informer staff.
dare you to do a super replay of Chrono Trigger. But the Steam version, smell you later.
You got us.
I almost agreed to that.
If you're out there, you better keep running, kid. Brett Williams from Martinsville, Indiana says, good afternoon. We all have hobbies apart from gaming, and one of mine is reading. My favorite book of all time is Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. What is your...
Did he write it in that
tone? Yeah, you get the
Oh, yeah, that's totally in the...
what is your favorite book and why?
I'll start. I read a ton of science fiction, and one of the best authors of it is someone you wouldn't expect. That's Michael Crichton. Rest
Why
his
wouldn't you
soul.
expect that?
Because he's known as the dinosaur guy, the disease guy, Andromeda World, the Westworld guy.
It's his epitaph. Call me the disease guy.
the dinosaur disease guy. But I thought it's a terrible movie, but Sphere reading through that the first time was just like the ultimate page turner for me. I could not put that down.
It's wild, yeah. That's a movie they should remake, where it's a cool concept that should be given better justice.
Yeah. So go out and read that book because it's incredible.
Oh, I was going to say Mike Crichton as well. Like, I love Sphere. I loved Jurassic Park. It's obviously a good go-to. Timeline's really good.
Yeah, I've never read that.
Really? I think it's one of his top.
All of his stuff.
Mine's probably a Hitchhiker's Guide.
Really?
Yeah. I reread it recently, and like, I just saw like, oh man, this totally not that I am anywhere even close to being like as interesting or as funny a writer, but I can see how it influenced the way I write and my sarcastic tone, which you always like to yell at me.
It's gotta go.
But rereading that book, especially recently, I was like, oh man, this is I have just been trying to do this my whole life. I adore that book, and it's still hilarious.
Kyle, I ask you not. This morning, I was sitting on my bed, just dreading going to Rickon Center. But I was sitting on my bed, looking at my bookshelf, and I was looking at The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I was like, if I just read that right now, would I think it's obnoxious now in a Pit People style way? I haven't read it since high school.
You know,
It might be more of a J.B. Gwaltney obnoxious way.
Because it's not obnoxious. It's I don't know. It's
clever.
It's very clever.
It is clever. It definitely made me laugh a lot. Yeah, I look forward to rereading it at some point in my life.
I was also going to mention Name the Wind. I'm a huge fan of Rothfuss's Name the Wind series.
Yeah.
Those books are really incredible and it's eaten me away that we still don't have that third one.
Breeze, are you ready to be put in the toughest situation of your life?
Sure.
There was a comment on a podcast. It was like, I think the most upvoted comment on the YouTube version that was like, you made some reference to seeing somebody in church, and someone's like, Ben Reeves goes to church? That's so cool. Where does the Bible stack up in your favorite books of all time? Is it in the running, or is it separate?
Well, what are you judging it for? Like,
Writing.
the Bible.
It's like an enjoyable story, I guess.
There's interesting, like, themes there, obviously. And obviously, I hold up the Bible in some reverence, but I was considering this as, like, works of fiction and, like, entertainment. I don't read the Bible for entertainment purposes.
Right. Something deeper. So separate pool altogether. Gotcha.
I will also, as far as like authors that like I immediately have to buy their newest book, David Sedaris. I'll always like I have to get that stuff right away. That's good.
It's a good one. Come up pretty soon. I think Mother Night by Vonnegut is mine. Anyways, Kyle of Richland, Washington says, hello, Ben H. and buddies. That's new. Have you guys listened to the Thomas Was Alone soundtrack? It's a great instrumental soundtrack that brings back some of the emotions I felt during the game. The game was funny because even though the game is all about solving puzzles using platforming shapes, I felt like the story was one that was very relatable and emotional for me. The soundtrack did a great job of capitalizing on those emotions. You guys played this game? What did you think?
I actually like that game.
I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I just listened to the soundtrack and it is very good.
Oh, I reviewed it for GameForward.com.
That's right.
What'd you give it?
I gave it an 8.75.
Did you play a sequel, Volume?
No.
Yeah, I like
That's
Volume
around
sequel.
it. I mean, I know it was his next game, but it was
Well, sorry, it's not a sequel.
Oh,
but
okay.
it's the guy's next game.
yeah. No, I never did. I need to.
It is cool.
Mike Bithell, by the way, is the creator.
Right. Like if you enjoy the VR missions in Metal Gear, Volume is one of those underrated games. Also,
Totally worth it.
what's his nuts is the narrator. I know you're talking. I can't remember his name. Andy Serkis. There it is.
Well, wait, he's not the narrator, but he has a role in it. Yeah.
Okay, Andy Serkis.
But it's the same narrator from, like, The Beginner's Guide or something, isn't it?
I don't remember. Look, no one remembers these games, but they should. Billy from Gloucester, Virginia, he's on a run where he has submitted a good email every week for like years at this point. Anyways, here he goes. Please use your expertise in all things by ranking these actors in their role as Batman. The actors themselves, not the movies they were in. Interesting distinction.
Wait,
also,
hold on.
So we're ranking them as actors, not as their portrayal of Batman?
No, ranking these actors in their role as Batman.
Okay.
What about Bruce Wayne? I don't think Bruce Wayne counts.
Okay, so we're not talking Bruce Wayne because there is a distinction there for sure.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd argue, this is a little pet theory I have, that Batman is the real character. Bruce Wayne is the costume he puts on.
Whoa.
What?
Leo from the booth.
All right, here we go.
Mind blown.
Adam West, Michael Keaton, Val Kilmer, George Clooney, Christian Bale, Ben Affleck.
Okay. All right.
So
No Kevin Conroy.
Yeah, I was going to say.
He says, P.S. the best Batman is obviously Kevin Conroy, but he didn't not include
He is
that.
probably because he's probably the best. But as far as
What
like
about Troy Baker?
physical actors,
Nah, come on, let's not get
we're doing physical actors, right?
physical men.
Okay. I think I would probably put Keaton 1, Bale 2.
Keaton couldn't turn his neck in the costume.
Yeah, that's not
it's
his
his fault. It's not his acting.
It's really not his fault.
It's his neck's acting's fault. Here's the problem, Kyle, with your precious Bale. It's just, he says not the movies themselves. You argue Dark Knight's the best. He's the best Batman. I find it's pretty solid. I love Bale's Batman. I don't wear that drives you insane every time you hear it.
It's funny. I listened to an interview with him recently, and he was talking because he doesn't talk about it a lot. And it was cool to hear this interview. And he was talking about how he went in with that voice. Like it wasn't like that was his idea to go in with that. And he came home and he shared it with his wife. He's like, "Hey, this is what I did for Batman." And she was like, "Honey, you're not playing Batman. You lost that.
You're
part.
not getting this role."
And you shut up. Let me guess though. Did you discover Xanax
I
like I
like
did
that
while
Batman. I
working
think
in
it's
the
a good
state of
Batman.
Connecticut?
I think it's a fine Batman. I think those movies are amazing.
Yeah,
I don't know if he's so Affleck is the best Batman.
Even though I like Affleck. I think Affleck is a solid
in the
Batman.
water and a solid Bruce
Xanax
Wayne.
in the state of Connecticut. Go ahead and do that.
Weird choice.
He is probably the most
I over medicated myself. That's sort of it. It's not an indictment on the Xanax as much as it's an indictment on my judgment on what I use and how much I use, and it wasn't good. My deal was corny. I had a real ambitious schedule there. I had a lot of responsibilities, as you well know.
No, ambitious would have been slightly realistic. Yours, you were on call 24 hours a day. You had a chairman that sleeps 4 hours a night and is somewhat obsessive, and an entire roster of highly combustible elements.
Yeah,
I don't know. I was already on the verge of a nervous breakdown, and I don't understand how you functioned under those situations.
Looking back on that, when we do our second book, which we are going to do, looking back on those deals, we didn't have a cell phone as proliferation of cell phones as everybody has now, and everybody panics and there's only one bar, or they don't have over 50% battery life or whatever the hell. It's a funny deal, man. You know what I started doing at airports? I pick my spots. So if I see a guy that looks like Wally Cox, an accountant or somebody, walking down there and looking his head down on his phone, and just wandering all over the hallway, I purchase it in front of them. I'm braced for the bump, they ain't. And, I'm sorry, you must be on your phone, you dumb fuck. So, I'm sorry. But, the phones have become but we're prisoners of the damn thing, so it's gimmicks. So I had my calls, long story short, came to my home phone. My wife answered the phone 90% of the time. And she got to talk to, she sometimes walked them off the ledge before I got them. But here's what I think, and maybe I'm wrong. I like your take on this. In that era, that attitude era, and a lot of those guys I signed, we signed, and company signed, and I just happened to be in that position. Some of them had never made even close to the money they were making then at WWE. And I think there's a lot of paranoia, like, when is this going to end? Do I still have a spot? I went on TV last week. There's a million things that come to their mind because they want to protect that golden egg that they've been getting. So I think there's a lot of insecurities, and this was a challenging thing. I've gotten calls at 2 or 3 in the morning from people that weren't going to make a booking. I got a toothache. Well, poor you, God Almighty. I remember having a long conversation with Vader about. I had him booked on top with Shawn Michaels, which didn't make Shawn overly happy, but that's the way the stories went. You know, Shawn was a champion, and Vader was the big challenger. Shawn was the underdog and had to fight from underneath. Blah blah blah. Then Leon calls me on Friday. Leon calls me on Friday and says, I can't make my bookings this weekend. His elbow was hurting. My elbow hurts. And I said, I bet you haven't even unpacked your damn bag, have you?
You mean
that's why the boys don't want to work with you, Leon. That chicken steak.
You don't
and
think he...
I love Leon. I love Leon. But the problem was, I said, so he had me on a speakerphone. Wrong move. So I'm cussing up a storm and angry and trying to reach him. And I didn't know his wife was in the room. So I says, Leon, you're acting like a big old pussy. I am not. I am not. His wife says, yes, you are. Which startled me because there's another voice there. She says, JR, I will take him myself to the airport. And no, he hasn't unpacked his bag so I can wash it. And if he doesn't have enough want to unpack his own bag, I ain't going to wash it. So I've had more than once to send the Hebners out for Febreze and I'll go to the laundry.
I don't think, and once again, we're not trying to savage Leon here on the program.
Oh, no, I love Leon. Hey, I'd hire Leon all over again. I just wish I'd have got him earlier after all those bumps and strong style and all this other stuff in Japan, because Leon was a big 400-pound guys doing moonsaults. They built for that. So he was kind of broken up a little.
That's the thing. We're not trying to savage Leon, but if you bet me money that bag never got unpacked for the year that I managed him, I would. He grabbed me when he was doing a promo one day, and he was supposed to be out of control, and I'm trying to calm him down, and he grabs me by the lapels of my jacket. I had to throw the jacket away because his Vader gloves, all the black came off of him onto this like peach colored jacket. Yeah. He pulled all my chest hairs out at the same time too. Leon got carried away.
Leon was a good dude. He was in a new world. He's another guy that was up there in age a little bit when we finally got him. He had been making big money, and he saw that was kind of coming to a slow close in Japan. So he had some anxiety. He had some uneasiness at that stage of his life, and he's getting a chance to work on top. He had the best manager in the business, so he had all the things he needed. But then we all worry about failing. You know, I worry about not doing a good job every time I sit down and do New Japan voiceovers. I don't know all the names of some of the. I told this to Josh Barnett today on the air. It hadn't aired yet. I'm not going to be one of those prisoners of arbitrary names for the same hold I've been calling it. In other words, a body slam to me is a body slam. And now, it's the slam-o-matic, or it's the slam me to hell, or no, it's a body slam. You call it whatever you want. And you can get on Twitter and eat my ass out if you want, because you don't have the balls to do it in my face. And because I am a very bad ass, I'm highly volatile.
I've seen those pictures on Twitter of you in the gym now, so don't worry about the mule, just load the wagon.
Damn right, buddy. And make it quick. So I just thought Leon was in a tough spot, but I love his work. We brought him into WCW on the basis of that great match he had with Stan Hansen where they beat the shit out of each other. And I hired them both in WCW. Against the opinion of some, because old baggage, Hansen didn't want to do a job for me back in or Leon didn't want to, I didn't give a shit. Who cares? The only person that remembers that's you. So, I like Leon.
Do you guys remember the game Bat?
No.
The acronym from Dark Knight Rises? It was the Bureau of Astral Troubleshooters. Bureau of Astral Troubleshooters. There was this cool dude with a black leather jacket and sunglasses.
Holy cow.
I don't remember his name. Put him on the roster.
That's good. I was going back too. I was thinking Donald Duck going Quackers. Ubisoft Montreal made. Get Donald Duck in there, technically.
They made CSI games. You can throw those guys in there.
Get Hernandez, who's the red-haired guy from CSI Miami.
Oh, Hernandez. That's his name.
Pocahontas. Let's see. The protagonist for Myst 4 that Ubisoft made.
They could do Rabid Sam Fisher, Rabid Ezio, Rabid other assassins.
I think they could do Mario since they did Mario plus Rabbids.
Technically, they could do
So
Mario.
they technically own.
You could do
Mario.
Franz Ferdinand from Valiant Hearts. Get him in there, historical character. Isn't that the name of the guy that started World War I or whatever?
He got assassinated. Right?
Red Steel? Is that the name of the guy? Red Steel? The Wiimote from Red Steel.
The Prince from Prince Persia.
That's true. King Kong. I'm talking Peter Jackson's King Kong. Yeah. And by that I mean Peter Jackson dressed up as King Kong. Would be the playable person as King Kong. Tracy Wu from Old Rainbow Six. It's a very funny name.
Mr. Ghost Recon. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the big one.
Ghost himself.
And
Tom Clancy.
Oh,
Mr. Tom Clancy.
Tom Clancy's shambling skeleton.
And Tom Clancy, key former Sega executive.
We'll get Mr. Caffeine in there. He's the announcer. Mr. Caffeine is like the announcer for Smash. Yeah,
perfect.
Just joking left and right. All right.
The Watch Dogs.
Oh, weird.
There you go.
Holy cow. We could get the watch and the dog from Watch Dogs.
Beautiful.
Mr. Watch and Dog. Anyways, that sounds fun. We'll play that game. Kate from Arizona says, I know you've talked at length about your ideal games on the show before, so here's mine. And you guys got to help me because I feel like this game exists, or at least I've heard about it before. A tactical multiplayer stealth game along the lines of Rainbow Six Siege, but with a setting and powers like those of Dishonored. Defending players could set up traps and defenses in a castle, fortified structure, and attackers could use their powers to scout out the area and attempt to complete an objective. As an alternate to a Siege's droning phase, attackers could possess rats like in Dishonored. I know it's impossible, but I'd want this. Maybe Arcane's Crossing was like this, that scrap game they're working on with Valve, but the idea of like Rainbow Six Siege, but with supernatural powers, I feel like I've heard of that game.
Is it a shooter or a strategy game?
Shooter.
He said shooter.
Oh man, squad based.
It almost sounds like it's kind of like a hero shooter, like Overwatch, right?
I
Like,
was just gonna say, it just doesn't have the quite theme to it.
but like a supernatural Overwatch.
That'd be awesome. That could be cool. What was that Starbreeze game? It was a Starbreeze game. It was a remake of like an old RPG that came out on 360. It was an online game.
Oh, you're thinking of Syndicate?
The Syndicate kind of fall in there a little bit.
That might be.
You're just looking at like class-based.
That's co-op stuff. Yeah, but they do have kind of like that steampunky thing. I wonder. Oh God, it seemed maybe what I'm thinking of is Guerrilla was going to make a game like this before Horizon Zero Dawn. They're making a game that ended up being too close to the order of like squad-based supernatural powers Victorian thing.
And maybe they were like, well, we shouldn't have worried.
That's right. They could have released it the same day, and it would have been fine. How dare you insult the Order of 86 in this house?
Hey,
it's a beautiful game.
Good-looking game.
Yeah. Let's see. Jamie Lee Curtis writes in. God bless Jamie Lee Curtis. Says, I sent in an email about 30 minutes ago pitching a game idea. I was listening to the podcast while doing so and was delighted to hear someone else pitch their game ideas. So here's another one. Think Shadow of the Colossus, but instead of fighting giant creatures, you fight regular-sized creatures as a tiny person roaming around the house or store, garage, other places. Jeff Cork would want you to make that game. Mr. Mosquito. Yeah, you should play Mr. Mosquito. Yeah. It's very similar to that. Toy Commander, also amazing. Well, you're climbing people on that. Okay. Mike from Maine says, hey, I wonder what kind of damage the headphones do to Brian Shea's hair? What's the damage after an hour or two of podcasting? He's basically bald. It's gross.
That's a wig, yeah.
Yeah, he just leaves.
Honestly,
salon.
Yeah. I swear to God, how much time do you think on the average podcast day if Shea's going to be on the podcast, he spends worrying about what the headphones do to his hair? Hand to God, how much time?
I think every time there's a lull in the conversation, that's what comes in.
I think so too.
How's my hair look?
I bet it's like 17 minutes of just fretting.
Just like, oh man.
And he wants to, like, he puts his hand down on his pants, like he's going to pull out his phone to, like, look and see how it looks.
Yeah.
And then take a selfie and put it on Instagram if it looks good.
To be fair, good looking hair.
Yeah.
Good looking bloke. Adam Kenny from Ravensdale, Washington, West Virginia. Not sure what WA stands for. He says, "Hey, podcasters. On the past podcast, there's some talk about how novel Kingdom Come's premise is a role-playing game in a real-world setting with a period-specific event. Kingdom Come even went so far as to immerse players into the frustrations of medieval agriculture by having gameplay plagued with lots of bugs." So what I'd like to know is, what are your brilliant ideas for a cool real-world period and setting for a role-playing game? Bonus question: who would you want to develop it? I like that first one. So we said, it's so cool to have an RPG set in the real world. What's a better age and location? Age, sex, and location.
I can't remember who did it, but they did basically a spy-themed RPG. This wasn't long after, I think, the first Mass Effect came out. There was Alpha Protocol.
Oh.
And I still think that's a really solid idea. Like, that was not the best execution of it, but
I don't know if that was like real world though.
okay, sure. Spies don't exist.
Have you ever seen one?
Have you ever seen a spy?
I have one.
I was thinking about this because, like, I'm not a big history buff or anything, but it's like, the Renaissance would be cool. I did that in Assassin's Creed, and then I was like, like the Industrial Revolution might be interesting. It's like, I never played Syndicate. And I was thinking of Assassin's Creed games, and then the one that I kind of thought that I would actually get really excited about when I play this is weird would be an RPG set in like the early 2000s, like when I was a high school student. Like, I want Persona, but when I was in high school, like early 2000s American high school.
What are you fighting then?
I don't know. But just like the nostalgia of just, and I don't know, but just the nostalgia of like going to a 2000 era high school. Like, I graduated in 2004, so to like play a video game in that time, I think would be really interesting and weird.
I feel like I've done it. I don't know if I'm thinking of Lady Bird, but I remember there was like some experience recently.
Yeah, actually, Lady Bird. Like, that was watching that was like this was my time. Like, this was when I was in high school. Yeah, for sure.
It was Pete Kyle.
Yeah, I even looked like
back
that.
when he hung out with
people
folks.
to call me Lady Bird all the time.
I thought of something similar where I was like, I want that. It was because I was raised in a small town and stuff, but I want that small town experience. Like, forget even Minnesota, just to go to like Saskatchewan, mid 2000s small town RPG, just something no one's ever done. You know?
Well, I would say I want GTA in my hometown. I want that video game. I want
Rockstar, get off your ass.
Dude, the town that I grew up in, the town that I know like the back of my hand, that I used to just drive around because I had nothing better to do. Make a GTA in that town.
It could be so fascinating. Like, the mission objectives, like get a Slurpee.
I was also thinking you could like upgrades could be like you finally get a car, you know, because you spend the first half of high school without a car and you get a car. That era, like, people were slowly starting to get cell phones, so that could be an upgrade. It's like you get a cell phone and it opens up your communication with all your friends.
Sounds way better than the spy thriller. You guys nailed it.
I want to play that game.
I got two. One, dinosaur RPG, Cretaceous, whatever.
Who are you playing as?
I don't know. You could be like a primitive man, or you could be, maybe it's even from the point of view of some dinosaur that you're controlling. Something like that.
Right.
Would be cool. But then, to kind of piggyback what you're saying, I'm watching The Americans right now.
Oh, man.
80s style espionage like that would be incredible. Like, if it was like a kind of a mystery, you're trying to stay like cloaked in society.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Or did you ever watch The Man from U.N.C.L.E., the movie that came out?
Yeah.
I thought that was a fun, like, tone, like 1960s style spies. Like, that'd be cool too. Yeah,
for sure.
I wonder, No One Lives Forever? Is that kind of that?
But I don't know how real world
it
that is. And I don't know how RPG-ish this game's going to be, but I wonder if Ghost of Tsushima is going to scratch any of that itch, you know? Maybe just like a very specific time and place.
That would be that. That's a good point.
Weird little island thing. Let's see. James Going says,
Did
hello.
you call Japan a weird little island thing?
No, Tsushima is not Japan. It's an island in between Japan and China. No, James Going says, greetings, Ben and the Hansons. Is Dark Souls Remastered the Dark Souls of remasters?
Yes, it is. I guess so.
Corey from Big Lake. Hey, Big Lake. He says, hey, since my last email was filled with spelling and grammar errors,
Hold on, did he actually do that?
No, he said errors. I'll keep one simple. Also, Dan answered my question in the most tact fashion, so the verdict's out on that. All right. Last layoff at GI, just humor me. Mom and Dad don't want you back. Okay. No humor there. Says, now you're forced to move in with one coworker. Who would you choose and why?
I already lived with Tim Turry back in the day.
That's true.
I already lived with the old coworkers. I'd move with him again.
I don't think so. He lives on the other side of the country as well.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's Joe.
I'd move in with Kyle. So we both have daughters roughly the same age.
They would murder each other.
No,
they would tear each
they
other's eyes
would
out.
keep each other occupied, and then we could play
We can
games.
do other things.
Yeah, they get along.
Wow, that's neat.
I'd live with Dan Tack, maybe.
I would, just to crack that nut,
My best friend.
I would like to figure out what he does in the evenings.
Wait, so we're both moving in with Dan Tack?
I think we have to. And I think he's going to move out immediately.
I think he goes home. It's dark. He sits down. The sun comes up, and he just walks up the door.
Sure.
That's what I imagine.
And he didn't even notice that was next to
There's
him. the whole
nothing
time.
nothing else happens.
Well, occasionally he'll shout out a meme just to an empty hall.
Ladybird!
Yeah, the classic meme, Ladybird.
The classic verbal meme, Ladybird.
If I could go one day without that meme
Oh,
taking
God.
over Twitter, we
Come
get it.
on.
Hashtag
What do you think he does? Honestly, the first thing he does when he goes home.
He goes and he watches the show, and he's filled with the seething rage that we talk about him so much. I think he goes home, and that's for sure. And
That
then,
much we can.
yeah. According to him on Steam, because I watch him on Steam, I think he just plays Slay the Spire, checks Twitter.
He streams from home, right?
It seems like he's slowed down on that a fair amount. Plus, those streams were just full his face, right the little webcam, he's looking in it, like the T-Rex looking in the Jeep.
Like a keyhole?
Yeah, and it was just him breathing heavily. That's what those streams were for 2 hours. So, did you watch those? It was weird. Why didn't we talk about that?
And he brushed his teeth.
Yeah, he brushed his teeth just like Florence.
So it's
Okay, Mike from Utah says, "Hey everyone, I just finished last week's GI show with Mike Laidlaw. Thanks for watching or listening to that. One thing really popped out to me in that interview. Mike said that he thinks that developers aren't competing for money when they develop a game, but instead are competing for people's time. This obviously isn't the same way that publishers think of the game industry, but wanted to hear some of your thoughts on the topic. In a perfect world, what do you think would change in the development cycle if publishers considered a game as a matter of time rather than a matter of money gained?" It's Mike from Utah. It's a weird thought experiment of if time was the currency. I don't think we have to go full sci-fi, right?
Yeah.
But
I think the industry would collapse under itself.
yeah, or everyone would just make Stardew Valley clones, which I think,
If everybody just did whatever they want, is that what you're saying?
but just the idea of the more time you can suck away from somebody, the richer the publishers are, because there's just one person who wants to live forever in this hypothetical from Mike from Utah, I think.
I mean, to a certain degree, we're there a little bit. I mean, people do consider time played an important factor.
Yeah.
We're kind of in a weird position where a shorter game is actually more valuable for me.
Yeah.
And I'm more willing to play it. But I think most people who buy fewer games, they want the hour count for a game is hugely important to them.
They should care more about the completion rate. I always feel like.
I think more younger people care about the hour completion, because I talk to a lot of my contemporary friends who are older. We're not that old, but who don't play games anymore because games got too long and sort of I'm never going to finish this game. It feels kind of burdensome. Whereas if there were more shorter games, even movies are very digestible in the evening. If you had games like that, or that you can watch in one go, I think more people would be more inclined to maybe play.
I think you're describing a movie.
Or that new Mike Biddle game, speaking of Biddle. Surface Search of the Third.
That's true. I do love that one. I'm amazed it's coming to Switch.
Yeah.
Impressive. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, tough one. Colin from Chicagoland. Is that Zanzibar land? I don't know. But he has a long email. The basic idea here is, games as service as an overall trend in the industry. He's wondering why don't more people do it with single player content? Why does games as service just inherently at this point mean, we'll add some more maps and characters and stuff? And he brings up episodic gaming as a kind of an example, but don't you think they could just keep piecing together a single player stuff?
Yeah, but you have a lower percentage getting to those higher points.
Right.
If it's an arc and you need to complete that arc, you're just going to have more people falling off with each new installment that you release, right?
But if it's a short game to begin with, and then everyone is a standalone side story, maybe in theory.
But if it's a TV show, kind of like you're saying, right? Westworld, people start Westworld and then watch for several months and keep diving back in. So if you release content like that, that's kind of what you're saying? Why is there more narrative-based?
Yeah, I guess so. But to Reiner's point, that completion rate is going to be lower. And
it would have to be more personal, I think. An idea of your character evolving over time. Things happening in his life. Just take looking at a phone, you get a message from someone, it's unique to you. You go off and take that and you get something unique back. Right. be a way of doing that, where personalizing the experience a little bit more through randomized content. I don't know how you would achieve that, but yeah, if you try to do episodic, you're just going to get people that fall off, or if they fall off too long, they'll look at it and there's like, oh, there's 10 episodes.
Yeah.
It becomes like a daunting, almost like, oh, now it's 30 hours. Yeah. Reiner, here's, oh boy, Brazilian fella, Guilherme. I'm sorry, right? Guilherme, thank you for writing in. Reiner, rapid fire for you, ready? Just concepts, rapid fire. You have to choose. I just got to throw out an answer? Yes. Cell shaded or 2.5D? Cell shaded. Good soundtrack, good visuals. Good visuals. Skate game or a new SSX? Skate game. Advance Wars or new Mario RPG? Advance Wars. Chrono Trigger 2 or Portal 3? Chrono Trigger 2. Warcraft or StarCraft? StarCraft. Blizzard or Naughty Dog? Blizzard. Wow! Would you have said that before Overwatch? No. See, there we go.
He misspoke. He said Chrono Trigger 2.
Oh,
Yeah, I think he meant to say Portal 3.
Ooh, well, here's the thing. With all the writers scattered to the wind, that'll be cool.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Portal 3 will never happen. Oh, I know.
You get a bridge game. Shut up and take it.
All right.
You don't have to do that.
Cal, you don't have to play it.
Oh, this is interesting. Hugo A. Galimberti from Brazil also wrote in similar style thing. That's interesting, Brazilians. Thanks for listening. He wrote a big email saying how much he's enjoying Kingdom Come. That's great. Since we've already moved on a lot after the PS4's launch, I present a challenge to the participants at the table about which games came in both last gen and next gen.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. This is very easy allies. I hope you didn't write into them as well with this type of game, but I love this type of stuff. This is the challenge. Were these games released on the PS3? Ready?
Okay. Yeah.
Watch Dogs 1. Yes.
Yeah.
Reiner? Yes. Yes, it was. Dragon Age Inquisition.
Oh. No? I don't think so.
Yes, it was.
Oh, what?
He's a liar! Witcher
Yeah.
3 Wild Hunt.
No.
Reiner? No. Correct. No. Diablo 3. Yes. Yes. Yep. Assassin's Creed Unity.
Ooh. Oh, maybe? Yes?
No. Nope.
Yes, the one prior was the last. Yeah.
Destiny. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that was Assassin's Creed Rogue, remember? Same time, right?
Rogue was the PS3.
Yeah. He didn't add this.
Destiny?
But
Yes.
I will. Destiny Taken King. No.
That was the second one. Yeah, I think so.
It was.
What? Really? They released
Yep. Far Cry Primal.
Yes.
No.
Oh.
Persona
Far
5.
Cry 4 was. Persona 5, no. Yes in Japan. Yes in Japan.
5? Yeah, that's right. Yes, in Japan. Yes. Are you sure it didn't come out here? It might have.
I'm pretty sure it did.
Wow. Positive, pretty sure.
Maybe in Brazil, though.
Hello. Dark Souls 2.
Yes. Yeah. I played it on PS3.
Call of Duty Black Ops 3.
Ooh. Wow. That's
Okay. Black Ops 3.
yes.
Yeah, I think I played that one on Wii U. Or am I thinking 2? I'm going to say yes.
This game came out in 2015.
No.
Yes, it did. PS3. Ark Survival Evolved.
That's not a real game.
Correct. That's what he wrote down there.
No.
Here's a good one. Guitar Hero Live.
Oh,
PS3.
man. Interesting.
Yes.
I'm going to say yes.
So. Yep. I think they came out.
I remember the Skylanders were on everything too.
Ah.
And you could bring your guitar controller forward, I think.
Alien Isolation.
No.
Yes.
Say no.
Yes, it was.
Oh, man, you got me.
Great. Far Cry 4. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Yes. Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yeah.
Well,
what are we talking about?
PS3.
Ground Zeroes or
Phantom Pain.
Oh man.
I think it did.
Yeah, it was.
Really?
Yeah, it was.
Oh yeah.
Reviews?
I'll go with yeah.
Yes, it was.
Wow. I Ground Zeroes I was for sure, but yeah.
I remember somebody being like, "There's no way that's coming out on current platforms." And at the time, we were talking PS3.
Shadow of Mordor.
Yeah.
Yes, the first one.
Yes, that's the first one, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that one was PS3.
Yep, you got it. Bonus question. Good one. Until which year did Pro Evolution Soccer and FIFA both release their games on the PlayStation 2? What was the last year they released for the PlayStation 2?
I think it was 2012.
Let's say
It's
2010.
Reed, 2011.
2014!
Wow! I win? I Kyle won.
Hang on, I'm crunching the numbers. Kyle, you win!
I did it. It was that Persona answer.
Oh, hey, he's a jolly good guy. That's it for emails. What do you guys like? Email of the week.
Dark Souls. Is Dark Souls the Dark Souls?
Nope. James going, but I don't know, man.
I liked the Smash Brothers question.
I like Batman.
Oh,
okay.
the Batman one's good too. I think I want to go with Batman.
Really? That's Batman.
We get a lot of Smash Brothers questions, and I like them.
But remember that discussion we had? It was pretty heated.
Over Batman or Smash Brothers?
The Smash Brothers one.
The Cinematic Universe or the Ubisoft?
Who's the Thanos of Smash Brothers?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, that wasn't it was King DDD.
Right? That's solid. That's solid. I like the real world RPG. It's both fueled by the show. It's an interesting thought experiment.
What show? I really want to.
This show.
I want someone to make my high school RPG based on my high school.
Oh, well, someone just hold up a mirror to Kyle already. Make him happy. I'll go with that one because we picked the wrong Batman. Yeah. Okay.
All right, sure, whatever.
Are you feeling good about it, everybody?
Yeah.
Hey, let's give it up to Adam Kenny from Ravensdale, Washington. I don't like that name. Let's pick a different. Okay, sorry, Adam. No, we'll give it out. We'll tip out something real nice there, Adam Kenny. Congratulations. Thank you so much, everybody that wrote into podcastinginformer.com. Again, anything you want, podcastinginformer.com. It'll be a good time. For now, we're going to be joined by Robin Hunicke to talk about working at EA, working on The Sims, working with Steven Spielberg on Boom Blocks, a little bit about LMNO, his project there and whatnot, working with the creator of Katamari Damacy. She's an interesting lady, and we talk about GDC, so stay tuned for that. Robin Hunicke, welcome to the Inform Show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. I just saw you not that long ago at all at the DICE Awards. You were giving out one of the awards. That's cool.
Well, there's a funny story behind that, actually. So, at about 6:30, the awards were going to start at 8. I got into the elevator from the Delano bar and went to my room, except that when the elevator left the floor, it stopped somewhere between floor 2 and 30.
Oh, no.
And I was stuck in an elevator for an hour and a half.
Just reciting your speech, just really nailing it while you're panicking.
I wasn't dressed. I wasn't ready to go. So I escaped the elevator at 8 p.m. and got to my room, took a shower, did my makeup, put on my heels, and busted ass just in time to see the Lifetime Achievement Award be given away. And then went on stage 10 minutes later. So I am a badass officially because I was able to escape an elevator and make my presentation at DICE.
Nice. Did you have a good time at DICE? Was there a standout interaction you had along the way, or something that really had an impact on you?
Yeah, actually, I met one of the scholars, and she was just a real badass. Basically, she was a really cool tech artist, getting ready to graduate and from CMU, and then is going to move into the industry. And there was a moment where I was like, oh, I should introduce you to these people or these people. She's like, I already know all those people. So the good news is that people graduating from college and grad school now in games are way more prepared than I was.
I've been DMing with that person for years, Robin. You really can't help me on this one.
She's like, I've got this whole internet networking thing done. I'm like, no. We should get a picture of your badge so I remember.
Well, coming up, you're at GDC coming up. You have a game design workshop?
That's correct. I'm actually doing a bunch of stuff at GDC this year.
Oh, really? What's the most exciting thing you're doing?
Yeah. Well, first of all, and I think most importantly, I'm hosting the awards, which is, kind of amazing.
Congratulations.
I get to stand on stage and make bad jokes for an hour, and people have to laugh, or hopefully laugh. But yes, I'm teaching in the game design workshop, which is, I've been doing that now for, Jesus Christ, 15 years maybe? 16?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's a 2-day workshop. It's a tutorial section. It's always oversubscribed, so if you want to go, you got to come early. And we have 8 to 12 veteran game designers from all walks of game design and franchises I would say everything from EverQuest and Mass Effect to BioShock to some of the really great old-looking titles to very, very modern stuff that's happened at Riot. And what we do is we meet with people and we have conversations with them about the MDA framework, and then for 2 whole days we make paper games and hang out with each other, talk about game design, and you learn a lot about how to think about digital games by applying the framework to paper games.
Is that as good as the job gets? Is that just like peak game industry, cool game dev time?
It is. The coolest thing about it is that a lot of people that I know in the industry will take time off and come to the workshop just to hang out and do paper game design with other people. So you get to see like somebody like Christina Norman, Riot, or Hart hanging out, and then they're making paper games with kids that just graduated school, or a person that's been kind of like a line designer at EA for a few years.
Yeah.
And all getting together, and then just the craft just levels the playing field. Everyone is like, I love making up weird rules and then rolling dice. That's fun. It's great to see them like in the heart of the craft, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. To hold awards at GDC, that's huge.
Yeah, it's my second time. I did it 2 years ago, and so this will be my second time hosting. Still don't know what I'm going to wear.
That's not important. What we got prep? Let's workshop some jokes here. Like, what's a good zinger you got in the bag?
Honestly, I don't have any zingers planned. Usually I need help writing the awards. I'm not that salty of a person in general, and I'm pretty tender, and I don't make fun of people that often. So my jokes tend to be either self-deprecating or I drop an F-bomb. But you never know. Maybe this year I'll get really creative and just like I'll get the Tim Schafer on, to help me write the jokes. And he was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" He's like, "I'm not doing it again. I just did it last year." You gotta write your own remarks, girl.
You know how long it takes Schafer to write jokes? Come on, you've broken age to forever.
Oh, now next time I see him, he's gonna make fun of me for saying that.
Well, hey, I mean...
Hey, wait a minute. You should write the jokes.
Oh, that's a really good idea. Yeah, we'll mail in a bunch of jokes. It'll be fantastic. So, is this a big year for Phenomena in general? I mean, is Watam coming out sometime soon?
Yes, Watam is coming out sometime this year.
Sometime this year.
We have not announced a date, but it is coming out. In fact, I'm working on it right there. Oh, right there, right next to me.
Fair enough, camera. What take this in the spirit which is intended. What's the hold up? What has taken a surprising amount of time with one? Because it's been years.
It has been years. I would say that the most judicious way to answer that question is that at times of independent development, there are unexpected changes and challenges. Sometimes those challenges are related. Sometimes they're funding related, and sometimes they're technical. And all projects suffer from uncertainty. And on Watam, I think the thing that has taken us the most to solve technically, in terms of just getting the game to run at frame rate and be the game we want it to be, is the incredibly complex physical interactions between randomly shaped objects. So if you think about it, building a simulation where lots of different things can play with each other and spend time together, like let's say this little bear, and we'll pick something else here. This key. You have bear person, and you have key person, like normally in a game they have a capsule that covers them and makes their physical ability to collide with each other. If you make this person be able to walk like this, and then this is going to be standing on it, and it's differently balanced, and they have physical properties, it starts to become very difficult for them to interact with each other without doing what things do in games when they don't react nicely, which is and exploding off the screen. And so I would say that the number one thing that we've worked on really, really hard in the game is creating a series of unique characters that can be little people and be anthropomorphic and fun with each other, but also that they can be scaled really big or really small, can interact with water or grass and like lots of other surfaces, so that the game feels really natural, even though it's built out of arbitrarily animated objects like a toilet and poop.
It's gonna be so bizarre. Like, I don't know, how would you describe the game? I mean, just kind of like toy box-ish? Toy box-esque? Or how is the base description of this game?
I would say that it's really it's an adventure that you take the mayor on to meet all the people of this world. At the same time, yeah, you're exploring how different characters behave with one another and the ways in which they can have fun and stack and explode, and the different types of people that they can invite to the world. So, the whole concept of it is that this world has blown up, and you're helping kind of bring everybody back from this diaspora and reform the community that was there. So it's kind of a game about helping the mayor have friends and have fun.
It's going to be tough.
Go ahead.
Just like with the game so focused on whimsy and just a cool, unique vibe. I mean, I'd imagine those technical issues, nothing's going to take people out of this wonderful fantasy more than seeing some silly hiccup along the way. You just got to make it buttery smooth. People can get absorbed in this bizarre experience, right?
Well, one of the things that does happen is that as you experiment with the characters, you do get weird things to happen, and I think the weird glitches in the game are some of the more engaging and silly things when we demo. So, maybe we'll get all of them out of the game by the time we ship, but maybe we won't. Maybe one of the funnest things to do when you're streaming it is going to see how weird you can get the system to behave. I think we have to be pretty aware of the fact that the types of players that play Kata's games love to see all the little ways in which he's imagined the universe to behave, and then to kind of push around in there and see where it breaks. So I expect it to break, in interesting ways. Like The Sims, which I worked on a long time ago, which I love, right? Which is the same thing. People play it to break it. So.
Yeah, and just in case you're not familiar with the game, it's Keita Takahashi, the creator of Katamari Damacy's new game and whatnot. Okay, gotcha. And so, is he in the studio then with you guys, or is he working remotely?
He's right there.
Oh,
fact,
my gosh.
Someone opened the door, and all of the noise from this interview is leaking out into there, which is, they don't like. They like to do it.
I understand. Well, hey, you can keep it down if you don't want him to hear, but have you gotten used to working with the guy at this point? Are you still learning lessons and surprises along the way from his philosophy towards game design?
Absolutely. I think everybody does. His number one favorite question to ask is why?
Why everything?
Literally why, yeah. Why do it this way? Why do we have to do that? Why do I have to go to PAX?
I was going to say, it sounds like a 4-year-old questioning why to everything until that last one, I guess. But.
Well, that is actually kind of one of the things that we've talked about. I don't know if you saw, we were on the cover of Edge magazine in February, and the article in that magazine that we did with Jen, the interview, was about, can indie games save the world? And I think Kata's unmitigated answer was absolutely not. The world needs a lot more than video games to make it a safe place. But, they can be fun, and you can have a good time with them. And a lot of the questions that we're asking ourselves right now, all about why the world feels so unsafe, and what is it about even exploding? We have a game where you take the hat off of the mayor and it explodes in a rainbow bomb that's fun and makes everybody laugh. I think part of that is about, trying to think about ways to release some tension and sadness and fear that we all fear right now, and just give us a chance to sort of explore and have fun together. And it's the same couch multiplayer experience, so you can sit down with somebody else, a small friend or someone who doesn't play games, and just kind of see what the system does. I think that kind of innovation comes from a mind that asks the kind of questions that a 4-year-old asks.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, you mentioned The Sims earlier. Does everyone just assume that your ideal type of game is The Sims? The Sims just must be a huge part of your life. And so, the go-to game for Robin, people are just well, you're making a game. I'm sure it's in some way related to The Sims, since I assume that's the core of your being, right?
I think that there are two people that really influenced the way I think about game design. When I was in my mid-20s, when I first started thinking about becoming a game designer, because I actually came from computer robotics. So I started as a programmer who was trying to build robots, and then moved into games because it was easier to simulate behavior in games. So I was really influenced by Will, because I met him at an AI conference, and we were talking about systems and behavior and the way that creatures in a game, say the people in The Sims, will interact with an environment, and they'll be attracted to things and drawn to them and want to interact with them. And in that conference, you sound like a game designer. It's I'm just a grad student. But over the years,
working on games like that and interacting with his intelligence about systems was a huge influence. And then the other was Warren Spector, who really took me under his wing when I was young and talked to me for hours about systems-based game design and building games where your choices have consequences. You know, the next game that I'm working on now is a larger, kind of bigger, it's a bigger scale experience, and a lot of it is about how your choices matter in the system. And I've been sort of an AI nerd for a long time. You know, making a game like Boom Blocks or even like the Tom, where it's physics focused, I do always try to get a little character behavior kind of in there and like have conversations with the team about how to make the characters more dynamic or like how do they interact with the world in interesting ways. But on this next game, I think I'm going to let my AI flag fly.
Yo, how much can you say about the game? Like, do you have rough parameters of what it's looking like?
I'm just starting to talk to people about it. Don't know who's going to publish it yet. I'll just say that it's a game about exploring who you are through a system. Like, I think I'm really excited by the idea of building something that is in conversation with you, that changes as you play with it. I love this idea. I've been in love with the idea of building something that you could kind of talk to for so long. Like, when I first started in grad school, that was what I wanted to build. I actually submitted a proposal to NASA for a story cube, which would be a cube with a touch surface that you could talk to that would tell you stories and show you pictures from your past. Almost like one of these.
She's holding up a phone for the audio listeners. Okay,
yes,
got it.
It's like, you know, I mean, like you have a tricorder, right? Now you look at your phone, it does all this, like it's amazing. But the core of the premise is that you can interact with it, that it interacts with you in a way that responds to you, which I think would be really fantastic.
Okay, so, something that interacts with you and builds out a system based on your personality.
Yeah, or your choices.
Your choices, okay. Do you think about, you know, how it's going to look to share the game? Are you thinking at this early stage of design, like, are people going to be compelled to stream this because it will reveal more about them?
I think a lot about how it's going to look and how to make it really beautiful. I think one of the things I loved about working on Journey and then working on Luna and also on Matam, to be totally honest, is that I really love it when you have an art director with a really strong style. Yeah. So Matt Nava has this amazing style, and Genova really worked with us to kind of create the graphic kind of concept of the experience, but so much of the look of the game came from that really deep interest in Mayan ruins and old Persian churches and stuff like this. And with Glenn's stuff, so much of the world in Luna is influenced by the work of artists like Mary Blair, where you have this really beautiful kind of 60s style print block texture stuff. And, obviously Kata has this very sort of pop style with very, very interesting objects that are also people. Like everyone in Matam is a person, and it's got that kind of giddy, bright colors and really, really hopeful palette. I really love the idea of how the art direction of a title places you in a different universe. So I'm super, super excited to think about how this game will look. So my current influences are pretty broad. Mobius was the first inspiration, and now I'm kind of moving through what does it really mean? I don't want the game to look like a Mobius comic because there's already kind of games that look like that, but it's more the feeling of expansive, universal, a little magical, but mostly real. I really love that feeling. So that's what I'm spending actually most of my time thinking about is the individual objects in these spaces that I'm going to be building, and then how those spaces feel cavernous and universally huge. I want to build a game that feels huge because Luna's so tiny and it's a little object. I spent so much time thinking about a special magical spot right in front of you that now I want to really blow out the opposite side of it and just go, okay, it's wow, you're in a huge space.
In a way that doesn't overwhelm you with the workload. Yes. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Phenomena, just for those of you who don't know, we're in San Francisco. There's 19 of us now in the studio. And I'm hoping that we don't grow much larger than Thirdby. But we're an incredibly diverse group of people, and we hire along a broad spectrum of experience and cultural experiences as well. We hire a lot of people that weren't born here. We hire a lot of people that have built games in other ways. Sometimes we hire people that are come from not even from games, like scientific computing and stuff like that. So we have a very diverse and open kind of group. And the goal is to build stuff with them that is really expansive and pushes the boundaries. But we don't want to crunch. We don't want to kill ourselves working on something really huge. That would be really kind of pointless. What do you do for a living? Well, I make video games, but I never sleep. That's a really shitty answer. So I'm really trying to broaden our ability to do work the smart way by using AI and using procedural generation and these kinds of things. Really cool graphics for it.
How reasonable is it to have a studio in San Francisco these days? I mean, why? Maybe it's just we're in Minnesota, so we might see things from a certain perspective, but why not get the hell out of that city if you're going to found a game studio?
The reason that you have to make games in San Francisco is because all of the raccoons live in San Francisco, and the studio, I haven't mentioned it, is actually 30% raccoons. We're an equal opportunity employer, and it's very important to us to include raccoons.
Robin, you have the worst definition of play it straight. Just leave it up. But is it just the vibe of San Francisco? People want to come there, even if it is the most expensive place on planet Earth, and probably throughout all of the solar system?
I love San Francisco because it's gay. I love San Francisco because it's friendly.
Yeah.
It's an open community. The Bay Area is a place where a lot of people come to find themselves who didn't feel like they fit in anywhere else. It has changed since I moved here in 2005. It isn't, in my mind, it isn't any less friendly to different perspectives than it was before.
Okay.
If anything, we're just adjusting to the idea that more and more people want to be around people like us. I think that's true. Also, a lot of people come here to do jobs in tech, and then those jobs don't turn out to be really fun.
Right.
They turn out to be kind of dry. Or, in my case, I was doing this graduate research on mobile robotics, and then I realized, holy shit, that means drones, and that means killing people, and
Right.
I would much rather work on virtual experiences where people explode and then get killed than work on technology that's going to actually send bombs somewhere and blow up real people. That was, just not even a choice.
Yeah.
So I think that one of the things that we provide by being in San Francisco is an alternative for people who have been doing jobs that pay tons of money but are not motivating. They can come work at the studio for a fraction of their paycheck and make silly indie games. There comes a time in everyone's life where it's a good risk to just step out of your comfort zone and do something fun for a while. And I think we're rapidly becoming that kind of a place.
Is it tough to maintain that spirit throughout the entire studio? There's got to be weeks where you guys are just getting bogged down, not quite in full crunch mode, apparently, if you're trying to avoid that so much. But there's got to be those weeks where it's I don't think I've heard anybody laugh for a week. We should probably shake this up a little bit.
Unfortunately, we have several phenomenauts who are punners, so there are always laughs, but they're those kind of painful, dad joke laughs. We don't
still count.
They count at lunch. I think that when both projects, because we're basically working on Luna and Watam kind of at the same time right now, and then we're spinning up this other project. When both projects are in crunch mode in the sense of they have really tight deadlines or we have shipping milestones coming up and things like that, and it feels like we don't have enough time, it does get a little bit sort of studio.
Yeah.
And what you just do is you acknowledge it. You're you don't want to force people to feel like they're having fun, but if you're honest with them and you let them know, hey, it's not so bad, this would be great. Thanks, Eddie. Someone moved my car for me.
Very nice. Very nice. Just jumping back to The Sims, just a little bit. I've been fascinated by this question, and I don't think it's out there. Maybe I'm just terrible at searching for it, but do you feel and aren't you surprised that the industry has not filled a more indie gap opened by The Sims? Where is The Sims' equivalent of City Skylines or something like that? Why is no one tackling that Sims genre, you know? I know the Sims genre is a confusing way to phrase it, but why isn't there an indie version of The Sims out there that's huge?
Well, so one of the reasons that The Sims is hard to beat or hard to copy is that it takes a very long time to build a universe with that kind of behavior system in it. The way that The Sims works is that all the objects in The Sims, like a refrigerator or a bed, whatever, advertise value to The Sims. And The Sims have needs that they need to get fulfilled, and they go down at a tuned rate, and then they're attracted to objects that fulfill those needs. So if you have a Sim that's very hungry and very tired, and there's a fridge and a bed in the same room, they may walk to the bed and then sleep and wake up starving and then quickly make a meal, or they may eat and then pass out with exhaustion, before they're finished, and then light themselves on fire and die, right? Like, that's what makes it funny,
right?
Of course. But building a system like that from scratch, and Watam is a perfect example of this, takes a long time, because what you do is you first come up with the objects in the space and the character, then you have to tune all the character behaviors and all the object behaviors, and then you have to make sure that whenever you add something new, it doesn't totally f up everything else. So Watam is definitely one of the hardest parts now, is that it's getting to the point where it's at scale, and there are lots of different unique characters in it, but sometimes they don't get along very well, as in physically, like, they just, like, their shapes don't work, or one has a behavior that causes the other's behavior to get tripped, and then they get into a loop. So things like that are very hard to tune. A dynamic system is hard to tune. So I think one of the reasons that no one's really taken on The Sims in an indie capacity is because, like, The Sims is a huge, huge project. Like, when I worked on it, I first started working on expansion packs. There were like 150 people on the expansion pack team alone. My Sims, the team for My Sims was over 75 people, and that was just a little Wii game, The Sims team itself is probably over 300 people. I mean, probably more than that now. And there's a lot of art outsourcing that gets done for all the objects now. So, like, if you're EA and you're running The Sims, like, yeah, you're making a lot of money, but you're also running like maybe a 700-800 person division just for that product. An indie version of it would require some really smart rigging, animation solutions, and AI programming. But then, really, the art burden of building something like that is huge. So many animators, so many artists. I mean, the animators and the artists on The Sims are some of the most talented people in the world, in my opinion, and also the most pleasant to work with because they love what they do. But it's a big organization. The Sims does not get made like easily, and it doesn't get made quickly. It takes a long time to think through all this. When I was working on it, one of my biggest jobs was to try and design new objects, and when you design a new object, you kind of have to pry open the hull of The Sims and poke around there and see where the object fits in terms of the systems, and then go to the engineers and ask for subtle changes or tuning so that you can have a lemonade stand that works the same way as a flower stand or whatever. And like, a lot of work goes into thinking through those systems. So it's I would totally play indie Sims, but I can't even imagine it would have the lifespan to build it at this point. I think it would be a lot of work.
That is exactly the answer I was hoping for. Thank you for going into that. I mean, with that many people at EA, like, I'm trying to imagine, what was that campus like? What was going on throughout the halls of EA? What were the big defining moments of that era in that place?
One of the things I remember very clearly is when I first got to EA, I was part of a group of graduate students that had been recruited, that include Kyle Gabler, who worked on World of Goo, and a bunch of other people, Vander, who ended up making Papuio. So there were a lot of creative designers like myself in that crew who were just on the cusp of going indie. And I had decided to take that job because I was like, I don't really know anything. Like, I'm 32. I just dropped out of a PhD program. Like, who am I? Like, I should just go learn some stuff. And so I had a very open attitude, like a beginner's attitude when I was there. And so did a lot of the people that were in that class of graduate hires. And when I got there, the very first thing that I realized was that not everybody was happy working at EA, but the reasons they weren't happy were really basic. Really basic things like there aren't enough snacks, or the bathrooms aren't clean enough, were like commonly coming up as complaints In fact, I actually helped run a thing on The Sims called the Complainathon, where I had these little boxes, and if you put a complaint in, you got a little smiley face saying that you'd complained. And went through all the complaints, and like really a significant portion of them were like, I wish there were better bagels in the morning, or like, I wish they cleaned the men's bathroom like at least 3 times a day. You know, they were very basic complaints about like work-life experience. And then everything else about working there that people complained about or unhappy about had to do with team issues. A boss that wasn't really listening, or a schedule that wasn't fair, that was going to cost the product some kind of polish, or a cancellation that didn't make sense, and you know, having people moved around. And so a lot of the bigger scale complaints, once you got to that level of running a business, were about individual relationships on teams. And it really nailed for me the idea that no matter what size you are, like, you've got to have reasonable facilities. You have to be flexible and like listen to people. We literally just did a poll here about how we can improve the snacks. Like, it's a thing. Like, you know, people just little irritations like that build up over time, and they make people sad. And then the other thing is just, you've always got to be working on your managers and like make sure that someone's managing someone else, that they're really listening and that they're open-minded. I learned a lot actually working at EA. A lot of the senior staff were very kind to me. Colleen McCreary, who ran HR there, or was senior in HR, ended up moving to Zynga and running HR there. She was like a really great mentor for me. John Versina, there were a bunch of people there. Even, honestly, what's his name? The guy that went to Unity, John Ricatello. He was really sweet to me. Yeah, like his little girl used to come and play test my Sims all the time. Like, he was very encouraging. Bang, Rich Hellman, like a lot of those people were really kind to me. Wow. So
Spielberg was okay to you?
Huh?
Spielberg was okay to you back in the day working on Boom Blocks?
Awesome. Actually, people always ask me this. I've answered this question so many times. He was a super cool dude. He drove himself to the meetings, was always on time, often early. He just wanted a specific kind of chai. That was the only thing he ever asked for. It's my job to get the chai sometimes. Never talked over other people in meetings, was always very polite, especially when people were pitching ideas to him and they get really nervous. He would just it's a cucumber. I mean, there's a reason he's a billionaire. I mean, it's like he's good at his job.
Unfortunately, then it just went pissed all over the men's bathroom, and it really destroyed a lot of goodwill in that place.
You really should write my jokes. I think you just signed yourself up for this job.
No, I'm super into Spielberg. I'm super into Boom Blocks. I love that game.
Did you really love it? That's great.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that soundtrack is still so good. If you've never listened to the Boom Block soundtrack, people, like, just look it up on YouTube and absorb that. It's amazing.
You know, we worked with Mark Mothersbaugh on that soundtrack, and he does all the music for The Sims. And Brad Foch, who was the sound designer that did all the audio and then supervised that soundtrack and most of the music that was written, he's my sound designer here.
Really?
He's doing the soundtrack for Watan.
There we go. That's awesome. But let's get specific, right? So specifically, what is the most standout meeting you had with Spielberg in the room? Like, did you have a moment of, instead of just generally he was kind, a moment of, there's some genius there? Because I imagine if you walks into a room, everyone's staring at him going, when's the genius going to come through, right?
You know, I had a couple of meetings with him that stood out, and the one that that is my go-to is that there was an engineer on the team that was really interested in building a boomerang ball that you would throw it and it would come back at you. And it didn't make any sense, because if you wanted to, you could throw the ball, pause time, and spin the puzzle, and then point it at anything you wanted. And there were a lot of kind of trick moves people were doing with spinning, rotating the puzzle and slowing time and stuff.
Okay.
So he kept pushing the feature, and I didn't really see why we should spend time on it, but I gave him his shot, and he pitched it to Spielberg, and Spielberg looked at it and then was like, but you could just do this, and then basically threw the ball, rotated the puzzle, and I was like, yes! Like, I'm not a dummy! Like, if he so it's a really self-serving example, but it was more like he listened to the pitch completely. He thought about it and was like, "That's a a lot of work to get something that's already in the game. And then he was like, why don't we make the ball glow underwater? And I was like, no, that's going to cost too much money. There's only one practical light on the Wii. No. Nightmare. So it was great. And then it was like, oh, now I have to explain how lighting works in video games. But he was always really open to hearing new ideas and then really good to brainstorm with. There were so many of those, I can't even pick one out of the hat, but he was exceptionally good at, actually, there was one other thing, which I don't talk about much, but, so all the characters in Boomblocks, I did all their, names. Okay. The producer on a game like that ends up doing all the stuff that nobody wants to do, like designing the create UI and like figuring out which balk sound happens when you throw the ball at the animals and like crap like that. They're all like really like low level usability decisions. I spent a lot of time working with Ottman and then eventually other people on the team on the controller smoothness. We basically wrote algorithm to smooth out the controller because kids were throwing and they weren't enjoying the experience because of the way the algorithm for the
Wii Remote was written, so we wrote some custom code for that. So I worked on that stuff, but I did name all the characters, and his dad used to tell him stories when he was going to sleep at night, and the stories were all Wild West stories about, Dirk McCurk, and Bad Bob Bozo, stuff like that. I don't mean the names that his dad made up were really awesome. And so when I went through the characters and started naming them all, at one point he was like, do you think that maybe we could call a bad guy, Dirk McCurk or whatever? It's like, sure, that's fine. And so I ended up taking like a list of these names that he remembered from his childhood experience of falling asleep listening to these cowboy western, shoot 'em ups, sort of bedtime stories from his dad, and turning them into the animal names in the game. And it was just like one of those moments that really reminds you that everybody had a childhood and everyone came from somewhere, and they weren't particularly well off, and his dad, was just making up these random stories to help him go to bed at night. But it's kind of cool, it really humanized him in a way, I think, for me, that was really also just very touching. And it was such a fun little exercise to try and come up with names that came from this list and figure out which animal they went with. Is that a cow name or a pig name?
That sounds really fun. It's going to be nice to know, everybody else that worked on the game, and I'm sure Spielberg enjoyed it, the finished product and whatnot, but I doubt any one person had more of an emotional impact on him than you implementing those names. So if you ever see him in public, you can just be like, hey, remember me? I probably made you cry when you played Boomblocks.
Not at all. And that's the other thing, I really doubt he even remembers me. He was working on a huge project that got canceled called LMNO.
Yeah.
It was on the other side of the building while we were working on Boomblocks. So he had a whole can of worms to deal with on that project. And so we were kind of I feel like we were the little pick-me-up at the end because it was a simple game. It was a very basic concept, and he had a lot of creative control over the art direction and the way the characters looked and all that stuff. And so I was kind of felt like we were the little easy project.
Yeah.
But I think that also probably made us pretty forgettable. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't even know my name from Adam.
It's pretty wild. He's getting up there in years. He's probably not going to make another big push in the video game space, realistically.
I wish he would. He had great ideas.
Yeah, it's just wild that you got pretty close to a front row seat to Spielberg just head down in game design. That's an amazing gift. Probably the greatest filmmaker of all time, and you got to see that, and it's probably not going to happen again.
Well, the thing that was great about it was that he had always wanted to build this game where you could knock stuff over and just enjoy knocking things over. He was like, wouldn't that be so cool? You get to build up a tower of blocks and knock it over, and you don't have to pick it up. And I think about Boomblocks all the time, working on Tom. What is fun about building a stack and exploding it? It's just seeing everything get chaotic and go all over the place, and then just being like, I hope they're all right. They float out in outer space, and they come back, hang out with you again. You don't have to worry about it. It's just fun to make a mess. There's something really similar, I think, in the way that Kate approaches game design, which is and me too, I think. What is what is the feeling I want to have in a game, and then like why am I building it? Because games, for anyone out there who doesn't already know, building games fucking sucks. It's really slow. Everything breaks all the time. It's expensive. You know, you feel like guilty because you're getting paid to do this and not like save lives. You know, it's not like I'm solving cancer, you know, or like building a rocket ship that will get us off this place when it's totally burnt. You know, like I'm literally making like poop animations. You know, like I mean, it's silly, right? But there's something so compelling about it that I just can't stop. And like really, the thing that motivates me, and I think Kata and you know people like Spielberg, I mean, I won't speak for them, but my understanding from talking to many game designers is that it's just so interesting to try and think of like, I want a person to feel this thing.
Yeah.
And now build a system that when they touch it and play with it, it makes them feel that way. It's kind of like being a chef. Like, great job, but like a fancy chef isn't just feeding people. A fancy chef is trying to give you an experience, you know?
Right.
And they're like, this food costs $1,000, you know? That's ridiculous. Well, I've spent 5,000 hours thinking about how to make this dish perfect, you know? Oh, it's not so weird to think about that now. You know, that's 5 cents an hour.
Yeah. It's an interesting idea, just thinking about like that core, you know, somewhat primal idea of like, we want players to feel this way when playing it. I mean, nothing against, you know, huge teams, but you just got to wonder, like, you know, the next Assassin's Creed, when they're mapping that out, they might say, we can make these improvements, we can make these improvements. Not like anybody's sitting around at Ubisoft going, we want to just impact the player in this one core, tangible way, you know? I bet it never comes up.
You know, there's probably someone on the team that is. Like, game designers can't help but see how people feel. Like, when you're making a game and it's not going well, like, Journey is an example that I use a lot. Like, there was a point where the way we were trying to tell the story in Journey just was not working. It wasn't working at all. And, like, people would be playing, having a great time, and then the cutscenes would come on, and they would immediately pick up their phone and just look at the phone, and I'm so... And, like, at one point, there was a really long walking sequence, and one of the testers was playing, and they're looking down at the screen, and there's a camera looking at them while they're playing, and then they were walking, and they just kind of stopped and looked up and were like, seriously? Like, this is so boring, you know? And when that happens, it's like stupid. Like, it just feels so bad that you're like, you're screwing up. Not only are you wasting money to be spent on cancer research or rocket ships to Mars, but you're also doing it poorly, you know. And
there's a decorated disabled U.S. Army vet.
So, you know, there's always someone that's thinking, like, our players aren't having a good time, or like this version of Assassin's Creed
County,
is interesting, but
board of directors and
you know,
vice
why
president
does somebody want to buy this version?
Community media
forum, Lara Croft
and a plethora of other things.
Why does somebody want to see Lara Croft this mad right now?
Is also very active in the community
because if they're not,
committee woman.
Then why is it that way,
treasurer?
Right? I mean, I do think that there's always somebody
justice, not jail,
asking
and co-founder of Veterans
whether or not
Outreach
power
Project,
and again, the technical ability,
many
or
other
the buy-in from their team to make that happen is a whole different story.
I'd like to bring on,
I don't know, I don't like to bag on big games or like studios that just make big games because
military
they're really lovely people.
For many.
Now I realize the weird connection with thinking like, wait, Spielberg's kid, his son, I think is still working on
the medals that he had earned during his time in the military.
Weird call overall.
And community involvement.
Other than
you name it, it seems like he has volunteered at every aspect of his
maybe play this
community.
year to see happen this year.
And we're here today.
I'm really looking forward to Dreams.
To talk about.
I just love Siobhan. I love her team. I think that the Molecules are some of the bestest and brightest game designers and technical people on the planet.
Back to his country
and I've also been thinking about going
in our
back
military
and
service.
playing through The Witness
Please welcome
with a journal and writing about my day as I play it.
Did I say that right?
Like having a really
I got it right.
extended experience with it because I played a little bit of it
so very much
before Luna Ship
coming
and
on.
I got super swamped. I
Can't
never
go through
finished
everything
it.
that you guys
And
have
I
done in
want to go
the
back
community.
and like
It's
actually
just so
savor it
vast.
as a concept.
It's insane.
Because I think
All I
John
do
worked really
know
hard
is
on a lot
that
of things
it's
in that
definitely
game that's been
felt
built
a major change
that like
you being
the
here.
programming alone in that
thank
game
you
is just
so
like
much
mind blowing sometimes. Like the way that
coming on and
the
talking
way that the
about it.
puzzles work and stuff. And I just kind of want to go back and
discuss why we're here today,
and
how
look
we
at it.
got here,
Adam
and
Finji,
why we're looking forward to
tweeting a lot
really
lately
get a big
about games.
rally for you on Monday. How did this all
Tweeted
start?
something like, love to the games that make me want to make games.
So,
and I feel like The Witness is one of those games for me. Like
it all started from 9/11.
So I want to go back and
So I know two Americas.
kind of
One was
boring thing
before
to say, like,
9/11
I've been so
and one
busy,
was
I haven't been able to
after
finish it.
9/11.
That is the
So
story of game
before
designers.
9/11, I was fine.
Well, the reason I'm happy to have you on the show, and I'm glad to make back for it,
my
is the idea
uncle
that
was
most people
here.
say Red Dead Redemption 2, in your
He
answer
was
for what you're looking forward to in
scientist and
2018 is taking notes
and,
while we're playing The Witness.
worked for the
And dreams, honestly.
state
And dreams.
college
I do
Central
love Red Dead,
University
and actually,
for many years. So I would come and visit him
when we
and
were
we
working
hang
on
out.
my Sims,
And he's my dad's
we
younger
actually,
brother,
there was a
not
pitch
only my
contest
uncle, but
basically inside the Sims
a really
division
good
where
friend.
Humble
And we
asked
love
us
the
to
nature and
if the
long
Sims could be
walks
on
and
the
hikes, and
like,
that's
which
what
was
we'll
called
do.
the Revolution at the time.
So
Big
before
letdown,
9/11,
yeah,
everything
big
was
letdown,
fine.
and then,
Year
but
2000, he and I
when it's
met.
called Revolution,
And
the
in
Sims on
January of
Revolution,
2001,
what would it be? And the game that I actually pitched
got
that I
married
really
and all
wanted to
that.
build
So long
was a
before
Western
9/11,
style,
I was very active in the community already.
like
I
a
have always
sim,
come here
like
to
Harvest
country
Moon,
legally.
but set in the
Never
West,
broken
or
any U.S.
Mule,
laws.
where
Not the
you
first time, not the
rode
last
your horse
time. Every
out
time
into the
I've
wilderness,
come here legally.
out to
So
the west,
I had
and
my
then you
green
sat
card,
down and you made a little plot,
long
you made a little,
before
like a
9/11 and all that. So after 9/11,
farmland, a
I
little
applied
house,
for
and
my
then the general
citizenship,
store, and then people that
that's
came
where
through,
one thing
you could
led
vote
to
on
one
whether you
discovery
keep
led
them in
to
your
another
town or not.
discovery. The
And
delay
as they
after
came
delay,
through, you
and
would
they
set
would
up
not.
little plots for them, and then tell them what to do, like just
It
like
used to
mules,
be
like
called
okay, you should
INS,
go here and
Immigration
then
and
get this much
Naturalization
stuff, and
Service.
the game would basically
And they would
every
not tell
day
us
would
honestly
sim out
what
how
they were
individual
doing,
properties
but
worked out.
we found out
And
several
so
different
it
things.
was like a
One of
Western
them was
version
that
of Sims. It was
after
my Sims,
9/11
very
they had
chibi
made
style, like Harvest
secret
Moon,
policy,
with building and
interdepartmental
crafting,
policy,
just like it ended
and
up with,
they
but
would
in a
not tell you.
Western
They will say
theme.
that your
And
name
the
is the
EA
security
marketing
check.
folks told me
But
that
the funny
Western
thing is,
games
when
don't
I
sell.
applied in 2000, late 2002 and
So I was
3,
like, God damn
my
it.
first
And then
2
Red Dead
and
came out.
400
And I used to play that game like
applications.
without the HUD on.
They
I would just
supposedly the I
like
is the
HUDless and like
immigration
wander around the landscape
service,
and try to like wayfind
INS,
my landmarks and stuff.
I
I
Immigration
really,
and
really love that
Naturalization
world.
Service. They
So
claim
I'm sure
that
the
they
new one
lost,
will be great, and I'll probably
that they
play
lost
the
my
shit out of it.
applications each time.
What it
But
really
guess what?
reminds me of is that those
They
marketing people
cashed my
were
check.
wrong. Dead wrong. Dead wrong.
So, and then we find out the third time that when I applied, I think that was 2003 or 4.
I hope those things
I
like
did
people,
not have
Western
to,
games do sell. People love the fantasy of wearing
as
chaps.
being a
What's wrong
qualified
with you?
veteran, as being a,
Awesome. Hey, Robin, thank you so much for your
honored
time.
to
Really
discharge
appreciate it.
veteran,
Best of luck.
that I did not have to,
DC Awards.
I did
Yeah,
not
I'll
have
see the
to,
DC Awards.
pay the fee.
And thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode of the Game Informer
But,
Show. Be sure to tune in
we
next
knew that,
Thursday.
and we asked for a waiver or
Bye,
asked
everybody.
for any questions, and they would not give any straight answers. So anyway, that's how I applied for the citizenship 3 times after 9/11, and the delays and delays and delays, and then eventually you find out that they had a secret policy, what they call it CARP, CARRP. It's an Orwellian name. The department calls it CARP, which stands for Control Application Review and Resolution Program for Extreme Vetting. So, but essentially, CARP is triple D, as Anne calls it, delay, deny, and deport. And that was the thing. You delay them forever, and then you eventually deny them, and you challenge their green card, which was already issued to them, or don't issue one after, even though they are statutorily eligible and they're qualified. And then you find bogus reasons, and if you can't find any bogus reasons, you create, reasons and deport. So that's the triple D of delay, deny, deport of that policy. The whole world and the ACLU calls it the Muslims need not apply secret policy. But we all know that this policy, interdepartmental secret policy, is unconstitutional. Why it is unconstitutional? Only Congress can make immigration laws. But departments are only supposed to implement them. They cannot make their own secret policies and laws, and that's exactly what they have done, circumventing by having this secret policy. But it eventually came out in FOIA reports and many other things after the interviews of those enforcement folks and FOIA requests, and then eventually they said, oh, that came from that policy, and the people said, where is the policy? How come we don't know about it? And this is how it happened, through ACLU and through some litigations and few other coincidentally, a little bit of information coming together and people putting the pieces of the puzzles together. So that's how it started, and that's where we are at. So we brought in, eventually when they did delay it for so many years,
and because again there's a law and limitation. So they are supposed to, when they receive an application for citizenship, action must be taken within 120 days. So within 3 months and within 6 months it has to be adjudicated, but they wouldn't do that. So then I had no other way to get that resolved but to bring mandamus action in the United States District Court. And that case, again, the intimidation was so much that I had a different attorney at that time, and then he left the practice and left the country. so that's there. So after that, we took the case to, as pro se, to Ninth Circuit Court, and that didn't go anywhere. So then we had to appeal it. We asked for the lots of law firms or other ACLU and stuff and Immigrants' Rights Project to do, the United States District Court in Washington D.C. to do a petition for certiorari. And but then again, I mean, the United States Supreme Court didn't have any incentive or motivation to take on this case, and that case they refused to hear it, because if they hear it, they had to say the department was doing unconstitutional acts, and the people who are paid on our taxpayer dollars and they act in our name were the very ones who were breaking the law.
All right. So how long have you guys been married?
We got married in January.
January 2001. So it's been 17 years.
17. Wow. So that's a long time. So yes. Very ingrained in the community.
Yeah.
So I know that there's been a whole lot of community support rallying behind you, and in particular, kind of behind or against how ICE has been running in Seattle, with some shady business going on. Can you talk about that? Because from what I understand, one of the original lawyers that were ICE attorneys that originally filed your case.
Not prosecuting, but persecuting me.
Yes.
One of them was the Deputy Chief Counsel of ICE Seattle office, which is the Seattle Immigration Court, handles the cases of Washington, Oregon, Alaska, and Idaho mostly. And the Deputy Chief normally does not go into the court, but he showed a lot of interest in my case. It's all about targeting of an environmental peace and justice activist like Ann and me. So he starts coming up, and at that time our attorney was Devin, and he felt so much intimidated and so much pressure that eventually he left the law firm. So this is what happened. But the government's chief ICE attorney charged with stealing immigrants' identities and privately profiting from causing suffering and tearing apart families and tearing apart communities. News reports revealed that, among other examples, this is yet another Seattle ICE attorney charged in the last few years show the toxic culture at Seattle ICE offices of personal bias, prejudice, bigotry, hatred, and malicious acts. So the people, the question here is who's guarding the guards? When the news was that the Department of Homeland Security eventually released the news on the day of the Marjorie Stone and Douglas High School shooting, and it was also the Valentine's Day, so that people would not pay attention. So February 14, 2018, the chief ICE counsel, chief ICE attorney, was resigned, and he did several things, but three broad categories. He was stealing the immigrant identities to benefit, to defraud the banks, open credit card accounts and stuff in their name, and then not paying those things, because once you put people in deportation proceedings, it's like the sky falls on them, and the earth is stripped from underneath their feet, and it's just, metaphorically speaking, it's really, really brutal. Or they end up in detention facility. I shouldn't call it detention facilities, because there's not much facility. It's a prison labor camp where you get paid $1 a day, for all that. So and the private for-profit prison industrial complex or detention industrial complex profits from it, like Geo and Corrections Corporations of America. The one in chemical dump grounds in Tacoma is owned by Geo. Originally, it was designed for 150 people max, but now it holds and keeps 1,500 people a night in detention. So it's very profitable. So these are the companies. Even the 2014 report said that they were making after cooking the books, they were making $5 billion in profit. So this is the profit which is created from causing human suffering and then profiting from it. So this is the same model you see at ICE. It's such a toxic culture where that the chief ICE counsel of ICE, which on February 14, 2018, they released the news that he's going to resign. But his own home, the utilities were in the very immigrants that he was putting into deportation, and then he was putting those immigrants that he was putting in deportation. He was claiming them on his IRS tax returns, so he doesn't have to pay his income tax obligations. And then, he was defrauding banks in their name. The people he was putting them in, deportation proceedings for $200,000, at a time. So all those, that shows the toxic culture and who's guarding the guards, and it's becoming quite obvious. And Mr. Jonathan Orwellian Love, who will show up in my case again and again, and his modus operandi was that he will say that this immigrant has waived their rights, or he will concoct he will do forgery and lie to court that this immigrant, statutorily qualified immigrant, has waived their rights so many years ago, and this is their signature when they never filled out that application. In my case, they brought up my volunteer application for Yakima Police Department, and they said, look, he put a check mark in here, and by putting a check mark in here, he's benefiting from it materially. First and foremost, I did not put the check mark. That's what the forensic experts also said, that Mr. Chowdhury was not the maker of that mark. And then Mr. Jonathan Love, the Deputy Chief ICE Counsel for Seattle, would not bring their witness. From which was the application was for volunteer application for the Yakima Police Department, and their star witness was a person who hated government, and was Gary Bellis. And if you go to either of the websites, there's a whole detail on Gary Bellis. There's a tab on the website, on the web pages. It's called either website, keepzahidhome.org or justiceforchowdhury.org. Justiceforchowdhury.info. So justiceforchowdhury.info or keepzahidhome.org. You go to either website, there's a tab on Gary Bellis, and then Gary Bellis would not show up every year for 4 or 5 years. That's what he went through, because he would not show up to court.
So that check. Oh, I'm sorry for butting in. That check mark, just so people understand what that check mark actually is. What did it say there? It
says that it's on the website. Also, there's a click, and it says that so some of the positions for Yakima Police Department, the person has to be citizen, not just a legal permanent resident. If we ask you for that information, it's just a line or two. Would you cooperate? Something along those lines. And I even if I made the check mark, so what? I will, cooperate. Of course, I was already legal permanent resident at that time, but not all positions. Some positions require that. But ICE was making the case that by putting a check mark here, I materially benefited. So material benefit is what the Chief ICE Counsel did by stealing identities of immigrants. Me, by giving away my blood, sweat, and hard work for free for a volunteer position, I am not benefiting from it whatsoever. I'm giving away, even if I make the check mark. But this is their bogus case, and this is how far and how desperate they are, to what lengths they will go to try to, allege people, and they always over-allege in many different things, to just like spaghetti and see what sticks.
Right. So I'm just like, at a loss for words that this has all been going on. So when you're talking about the ICE agents taking over these identities, someone in the past, if I remember right, could be wrong with the date, 2014, there was another agent that was doing the same thing.
Yeah, 2016, he was doing forgery. The Deputy Chief Counsel, Mr. Jonathan Love, who used to come up again with other ICE attorneys, and they will be on the record, but he wouldn't be on the record. He would just come in to show and tell the judge and everybody else and my attorney that, we are really after this case, just let it go. And of course, in my case, my attorney, after that, resigned from my case and resigned from the law firm because it's too much pressure. You can't handle it. You need to understand, founding fathers understood some of these issues very well, and that's why they put jury trial. I mean, a real court of law, with rules of evidence and everything else. So, and that if you're gonna, allege me with something, I have a right to see who's my alleger is, and let this be a jury of my peers, which none of that applies. It is for all intents and purposes, it's an executive administrative court. So, all of that due process is not available.
So how many times have you had to go to court now?
I think over 20 times.
Over 20 times?
Over 10 years or so. Yeah.
Wow. And I know that they've been pushing out and pushing out. Why is some of that? When I was reading up, I heard that they're not coming in really prepared, and they just keep asking it to get pushed out.
It is the policy. It is the... Go ahead.
Part of it was the years and years and years that we waited for them to bring their star witness, Gary Bellis. And they tried to get the judge to agree to him being interviewed or sworn in over the phone. And the judge said, no, Mr. Chowdhury has the right to face, to question his accuser. And so they kept delaying it because they didn't want their star witness to come in because we could blow that out of the water. And so that was a long delay. This most recent delay was the government's attorney, the ICE attorneys, wanting, again, different background checks. And they kept saying the background checks are imminently here. I expect just a telephone call today. And the judge said, no, I'm not going to have the Chowdhurys and their supporters come back again in the same week, So we'll just wait until they are here, until the background checks are done. And so the background checks, that was at the November 2017 hearing, and the background checks did not get completed until the first week of January of 2018. So,
wow.
But this background check is a ruse.
It is.
It's an excuse.
It is an excuse.
And this is what you see in every single CARP case, Muslim Union Apply case. CARP, they say not to give them any answers and say, oh, they're in background checks and indefinitely. So just like indefinite detention, extreme vetting, all that. So it's just a ruse. It's just a big farce and a lie. Or and they knew. So that eventually the person will die, eventually person will do something, eventually the straw which will break the camel's back, eventually the person will go postal, and this is what, or they will go bankrupt, or because, government has unlimited money to waste, fraud, abuse of taxpayer dollars, and they have unlimited attorneys, because any individual is sooner or later will run out of money and patience and all other things, and that's what they count on, and that's what the system is designed for.
I want to bring in Courtney here for a minute to see if there's any questions out in the audience, or if Courtney has anything she would like to say or ask.
Well, thank you. Hello. I do have a question. There's a few questions out here. One is a question about your sunglasses. And then another question is, how long have you been going through this process?
Yeah. So sunglasses is about head injuries and my migraines. So I try to wear them as much as possible. The reason being, if I don't wear them, then I have to take a lot more migraine meds, and that makes you zombie. So I want to make every single moment that I'm alive. My motto in life is love, life, and living. The 3 L's of Zahid. Love, life, and living. So many of us get so much busy in this materialistic world that we are not living. truly meaningful living. So that's what I want to focus on. I want to take as little prescription medicine as possible, so that and not being a zombie. So that's why I do all the other precautions. So that's the thing. And how long we've been going through it? It all started after 9/11 because Gary Bellis took my files after the 9/11 attacks a few weeks after, because he wanted to go on the FBI training, which they were not letting him go. But he wanted to cause suffering. And again, the career ladder, the rungs on the career ladders, each rung is fought with the suffering of human beings, that the lives they destroy, so they can keep increasing their pay.
Well, thank you very much, and I'll keep looking for more questions.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Courtney. So when we were talking earlier today, I was going to say the way that you guys look at each other, still after 17 years, the love that you guys portray here, I'm sure is felt throughout your community. How has been the community with you regarding this? I see that you do have a lot of backers, but how is that really coming together?
It's a lot of people want to find out what they can do to help. A lot of people throughout the communities, around the state, even around the world, has written endorsements for citizenship, and those can be found on both websites under the endorsement tabs. And that goes all the way. It's Republican, Democrats, Independents, pastors, lay people, all sorts of community members, and they're all. And I don't think we've ever met anybody that's that's just not shocked to their toes that this is bizarre. It's bizarre, and it's been going on way too long. And one of the first couple of questions that they ask is, well, you're married to an American citizen. Why doesn't that help? And in Zahid's case, he was in the military, and President Bush had an executive order reaffirming that those that served during times of conflict would have expedited citizenship. And many of his co-soldiers did that. They got their citizenships right away. For some reason, not Zahid.
Do you think it does have something to do with being an activist in the community? You mentioned it earlier. Do you think that really is the highlighted point to this?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's a targeting of environmental and peace and justice activists. And if you happen to be a Muslim, that's another bonus points for some, Islamophobic folks.
So I'm sorry. So what country are you from? We forgot to establish that at the beginning.
Great. My father was a refugee from India into Pakistan. So my grandmother, the empires collapsed, because that's the natural state of empires. The British Empire, colonial empire, was collapsing, and grandmother's family had lots of lands and farms in Punjab, in India. So what happened is that when the colonial occupiers were leaving, then they didn't want people to have peace, and they will push. It's all divide and conquer, which is happening these days also, just in a different way. So they started fighting. So my grandmother grabbed my father at that time, about 8-9 years old, and ran to the forest, and they will travel at night, heading straight west, and at daytime they will hide either in forest or tall crops. My father saw his own grandparents, shot and killed right in front of him. No kid should see that. So eventually they arrived in a refugee camp in Pakistan, and that is my history. So from India, being a refugee into Pakistan, and losing so many loved ones and family members, being killed right in front of your eyes, and after months and months of June, July, August heat, traveling at night and arriving in a refugee camps without clothes and everything else. And my grandmother started helping again in the refugee camp, start sewing clothing for people, because everybody was tarnished and broken, and then start building it, and then eventually all her life. Who I am today, I think I have a big influence on me was my grandmother. But again, all adversity, doesn't matter what happened to you, again, all adversity, you try to do the best for all the folks and people around you and build the community. And she did so much, and then she ran the whole village in this masculine society. Even being a feminine in feminist economics, she lived it, she practiced it, and this was amazing. And so we were refugees. My mother and my father and my grandmother were refugees into Pakistan, and I guess that's where I was born.
So what can we do here, us, in Washington State, actually across the country? What can we do to help in this fight that you have?
So go to the both websites, keepzahidhome.org, and people say, keep Zahid home? Who would take somebody from their home? So, and you said, deporting to your home country. I don't see that my home country. I see this my home country. This is the country I've given nearly 20 years of my life to. This is the country I love the most, I serve the most, whether I be unpaid volunteer for the city fire department as a paramedic and emergency medical technician, or a first responder, or as American Red Cross volunteer for the or National Guard available for flood and whatever, or for United States Army. So this is my country. I have given my most of my life to it and my great years to it. So what people can do, they should go to the both websites.
The other website is www.justice4, and that's the digit 4, chowdhury.info, info, and just educate yourself. Educate yourself about the CART program. It's illegal. It was previously secret. It is still being fought in the courts. Whether or not it has legality. And this is the backhanded, underhanded, sneaky-handed way that the INS, Immigration and Naturalizations, Services, INS. That was a former name, and it's now called ICE, which is Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement. And they are really leaning heavily throughout the country on the enforcement part of that. The top attorneys in ICE, they're criminals. And really, when you read their stories, when you read the stories that have been printed about them, they're only getting a slap on the wrist. Even the court documents aren't what somebody else would get if they were charged with the same thing. They get to go through what is called information, which means they get to go directly into plea bargaining. They get to avoid the grand jury questioning, and their punishment is just basically a slap on the wrist. So people need to hear about this. People need to read about it, that this is going on, and it's going on right here.
So Pastor Reverend Terry Kylo of Seattle will say, in Nazi Germany, it was the same population of Jews. What is the population of Muslims in America today? So we need to see the parallels. And everything what happened in Nazi Germany was legal. So Dr. Martin Luther King said, in the end, we would not remember the words of our enemies. We will remember the silence of our friends. So what the people can do, they can go to the websites, they can go to the endorsement tabs and see the letters. Pastor Amy Hessel's letter, Good Church of the Lutheran, Good Shepherd Church of the Lutheran, is a good example. She wrote that letter last year. There are some letters which are 10 years old or even longer. So people can write letters of support. That is one thing they can do. People that can show up for solidarity and vigil at 12 on Monday, March 12th, from 12 to 12:45, 12 noon to 12:45, and that is leaving your own legacy behind. That yes, I remember that I was there for Zahid's last final hearing and for vigil and solidarity and support, so that these things end. Because as Martin Niemöller's famous poem, first they came for the trade unionists. I didn't speak up, because I wasn't trade unionist. Then they came from the this and that, and then they came from the Jews. I didn't speak up because I was a Jew, and then they came for me, and then now there was nobody left to speak for me. So as they say in Surge, that if you came here to help me, you're wasting both of our times. But if you think that your liberation is tied to mine, Now let's organize and work together for our collective liberation and the collective, undoing the oppression that we are all suffering.
Right. Thank you. I want to make sure that we point out these couple events coming up because it's right around the corner. So on Saturday, March 10th, from 7 to 9 p.m., we have Traditions Fair at Traditions Fair Trade. The address is up there. It's honoring you two for all you've done and the fight that you've been through. So go support there. But most importantly, like you said, on Monday, March 12th at noon to
in Seattle.
12:40, in Seattle, on the corner of 2nd and Spring Avenue, I believe, is where the rally is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the corner of
just confused with the federal building, but it is not the federal building. It's innocuous looking building, and it is right on the corner of Spring and 2nd Avenue. And the court is on the 25th floor of that building.
Wonderful. So there's going to be a big rally right before, and then everybody heading up at once, I assume?
Yes.
In solidarity to show their support?
Yes.
So again, it's on the corner of 2nd and Spring. Show up at noon Monday for that.
Yes.
And then I did put all the links into the websites you guys mentioned and to some of the articles out there down in our description here on this video, so people can go find that very easily. And letters, I think you're right. So it's not too late to send letters? Is that
No, just email it to us, and we'll do the best we can, to give it to court. Just sign it and then scan it, so there's a signature on it.
Yeah, the important thing is the signature.
Because the people, otherwise they find that excuses on the other side, ICE and others, to throw them out. They forgot to sign it. So sign and put your name on it. And here I am. I'm making a legacy. I stand, on the side of love and on the side of Zahid. And we will make a great legacy. And this is how we bring community together and protect the community from being ripped apart.
Right. Let's bring Courtney in one last time, just as we're finishing up here, to see if there's anything further out there for questions.
Thank you. One more question. What is what are the possible outcomes of Monday? So we're talking about a noon to 12:40. It's a short. Well, I mean, it's just a vigil for that time.
40 minutes.
Yep. And then and you'll be in court during that time?
No. Court starts at 1 p.m. upstairs. So we will all be together. One time, Elisa Gass, a fellow peace and justice activist and a union activist in Seattle, she organized that. Give me a sentence or a poem or a word or spoken art about the memory of Anne and Zahid, so something like that. And then together, what can we do? And the whole community comes together, and that's a wonderful thing to see. And then 1 o'clock the court starts, and the thing is this case has been unprecedented. It has broken all records. There was the last time, the oldest record was 13 years, who was denied his citizenship because they were just background checks, which is CARP. So whenever you hear background checks and the person is Muslim, it's all CARP. Muslims need not apply policy, secret policy, or known as Control Application Review and Resolution Program. So that's what it is. But the court will start 1 o'clock. Possible outcome is that they will say, sorry, we apologize, we plundered so many taxpayer dollars, and we apologize, and this is the reparations, and we hope for that. But that's one possible application. When you put somebody in open air prisons for 17, 18 years, and limited. What is the price of a human life for 2 decades? So, but reparations. So that's a good outcome. If that doesn't happen, they will say, okay, they don't acknowledge or apologize, but they say, okay, the green card you were given and everything else is okay, and we won't revoke that. That's a good application. That's somewhat still okay. And other option, we never know, but they could tell you, give me 30 days and say voluntarily deport, and if you don't, we'll take you in custody and put you in detention facility. That's also, and there are some other possibilities I would rather not talk, because It's called it's the spiritual practice of manifesting, good things and better things, and not all the whole spectrum.
Yes, let's only talk about the good and keep you home.
And how long do you think the hearing will last?
Hopefully not too long. Maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, could be an hour, but you never know. If they throw any other monkey wrenches as they have, we could be there till 4 o'clock, which is 2 or 3 hours.
All right. Well, I want to encourage people to show up for the vigil, but plan to stay until the end.
Yes.
Thank you guys again for taking your time out of such a busy schedule that you guys have. I really appreciate it, and I really hope that people really take a listen and get involved and understand what's going on. So thank you again. We're going to have John let us know what song he picked for our Way Out. Oh, no, it wasn't John. Actually, we changed it up. I forgot. Zahid, would you please introduce this song? And since you know this artist, what we're going to leave this show with?
Sure, I could.
Go right ahead.
David Rovig's song?
Yes.
Oh, wow. It could be St. Patrick's Battalion. It was about the poor Irish who came to this country, and they were fighting on their side, but eventually they saw at the Mexican war that they were killing other innocent brown folks and other who were outcasts, as the poor Irish were in the British gentry, upper class. It's all about class warfare. So, and then they eventually realized that, and they fought from the other side. And this was amazing. St. Patrick's Battalion. It is written and sung by Dave, Anne's all-time favorite singer-songwriter.
David Rovig. Woo!
Yes,
Thank
indeed.
you so much.
You're very welcome. Together we will, survive, or separate, we will all fall apart.
Right. Totally agree.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
My name is John Riley. I'll have your ear only a while. I left my dear home in Ireland. It was death, starvation, or exile. When I got to America, it was my duty to go. Enter the army and slog across Texas to join in the war against Mexico. And it was there in the pueblos and hillsides that I saw the mistake I had made. Part of a conquering army with the morals of a bayonet blade. And there amidst all these poor dying Catholics, screaming children, the burning stench of it all, myself and 200 Irishmen decided to rise to the call. From Dublin City to San Diego, we witnessed freedom denied. So we formed the St. Patrick Battalion, and we fought on the Mexican side. We formed the St. Patrick Battalion, and we fought on the Mexican side. March beneath the green flag of St. Patrick, emblazoned with Erin Goldratt. Right with the harp and the shamrock, and Libertad Republica. Just 50 years after Wolf Tone, 5,000 miles away, the Yanks called us a legion of strangers, and they can talk as they may. But from Dublin City to San Diego, we witnessed freedom denied. So we formed the St. Patrick Battalion, and we fought on the Mexican side. We formed the St. Patrick Battalion, and we fought on the Mexican side. We fought them in Matamoros, where their volunteers were raping the nuns. In Monterrey and Cerro Gordo, we fought on as Ireland's sons. We were the red-headed fighters for freedom, amidst these brown-skinned women and men. Side by side, we fought against tyranny, and I dare say we'd do it again. From Dublin City to San Diego, we witnessed freedom denied. So we formed the St. Patrick Battalion, and we fought on the Mexican side. We formed the St. Patrick Battalion, and we fought on the Mexican side. after each mortar blast. Most of us died on that hillside at the service of the Mexican state. So far from our occupied homeland, we were heroes and victims of fate. From Dublin City to San Diego, we witnessed freedom denied. So we formed the St. Patrick Battalion and we fought on the Mexican side. From Dublin City to San Diego, we witnessed freedom denied. So we formed the St. Patrick Battalion and we fought on the Mexican side. We formed the St. Patrick Battalion and we fought on the Mexican side.
Mm-hmm.